as a leading voice on corporate governance and public administration. One of the major ways we have acquired this deserved fame is through annual organization of public-spirited programs such as the annual public lecture and the roundtable on corporate governance, amongst others. We have also consistently produced guidance and policy papers for both public and private sectors, with a view to entrenching the philosophies of good governance and responsible administration. The public lecture is an important program in the calendar of the Institute because whilst the public lecture has become an established platform through which the Institute contributes to national discourse on trending issues of national or global importance, it is also one of the major corporate social responsibility initiatives of our Institute. The theme of this year's annual public lecture, Driving Sustainable Development, Public-Private Partnership as a Catalyst, is very apt because it focuses on leveraging the power of synergy between these two major sectors to unlock the nation's potential for growth and economic advancement. Sustainable development is a much sought after theory in socioeconomic and political balance, as it is a form of growth and advancement that takes care of both the present and the future. It involves well-articulated plans, actions, and practices in both short and long-term ramifications, which are mainstreamed into government systems, procedure, and policies. For Nigeria to transform our potentials into concrete growth, there is no gainsaying the fact that the nation needs to have greater collaboration between the private and the public sectors. This is indeed a necessity for actualization of national progress. The government must not only contribute resources, but it must also put in place the enabling environments, mechanisms, processes, and institutions that will engender growth and sustainable development. The private sector, on the other hand, must provide resources, technical expertise, and entrepreneurial dynamism to make the nation a globally competitive and productive entity. For the effectiveness of this collaboration paradigm, the government will need to be more committed to building strong institutions to support entrepreneurship by putting facilities in place and generally creating enabling environments that will actualize the entrepreneurial initiatives of millions of enterprising Nigerians. The envisaged collaboration of both the public and private sectors must result in a synergy that overhauls the much needed national productivity of our dear nation, Nigeria. The government needs to ensure proper implementation of all its economic policies with a view to enable a suitable business environment that will be auspicious to private sector players and potent enough to also attract foreign investors. I also need to add, for this collaboration between the private and public sectors to be fully maximized in terms of accruable benefits, it must be predicated on the principles of corporate governance. All the stakeholders in both sectors must imbibe good governance practices, since it is by so doing that the cardinal foundations of enduring business practices and sustainable development can be laid. Corporate governance within a country helps to establish direction, guide formulation and implementation, improve transparency, promote reputation, and foster checks and balances, thereby leading to national growth and development. Fortunately, Nigeria is now on the verge of having a complete legal and regulatory framework which can serve as a foundation for the much sought after economic growth and sustainable development. It will be recalled that the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria recently unveiled 2 new codes sequel to the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018, which are now in the exposure draft stage. The first of these 2 exposure draft codes is the Nigerian Not-for-Profit Governance Code 2020, and boards of trustees and management of not-for-profit organizations to better understand their roles and responsibilities and to develop effective governance practices that support their mission and goal. The second is the FRC exposure draft on the Nigerian Public Sector Governance Code. And the aim of the draft code is to ensure that the public sector entities fulfill their overall mandates, achieve their intended outcomes for citizens and service users, operate ethically, transparently, efficiently, and in draft on the Nigerian Not-for-Profit Governance Code and the FRC exposure draft on the Nigerian Public Sector Governance Code become operative to complement the existing Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance Code 2018. The tripod of governance framework will be completed, and this will surely deepen the corporate governance culture and practices in Nigeria. We have assembled here today a carefully selected team of resource persons to do justice to this apt, relevant, and important theme. The keynote speaker is none other than Dr. Tayo Adeloju, who is a seasoned professional and reputable authority on governance matters. Like I mentioned in my protocols, he is the CEO of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, NESG. Our discussants, Mr. George Urese, Ms. Ayotola Jagno, FCIS, Mr. Andy Ayo, and of course, our amiable Commissioner for Finance who walked in not too long ago. Please, let's acknowledge him. Indeed, with our experts who all have proven capabilities, capacities and competencies, knowledge and skills, I believe that they will all individually enlighten our perspectives on issues that will be thrown up in the discourse of today's public lecture. I am confident that we will all enjoy the strategic insights of these formidable array of resource persons. I want to enjoin all the participants to participate actively by contributing vibrantly to the discussion at the appropriate time. As is usual with our programs, there will be a session for questions, comments, and observations, and also remarks. Please take advantage of this at the appropriate time. As it is our practice during our annual public lectures, the cogent issues in today's discourse will be collated by our seasoned rapporteurs into a communique featuring our observations and, more importantly, recommendations. So it's not enough to just talk about the issues. What exactly are the solutions we're providing? These are the things that will be contained in our recommendations. This communique will be forwarded to the relevant policymakers and other players within the economic space of Nigeria. In conclusion, I want to thank all those involved in the planning and organization to make this public lecture a huge success. We've had a full hall right from the start of the program. Please appreciate yourselves with a round of applause. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming early as well. I thank the organizing committee, the Publicity and Advocacy Committee of ICSAN for the passion-driven commitment and sacrifices they made to make today's program a success. I also like to appreciate the local organizing committee here in Akwa Ibom State Chapter. Please, can you help me to acknowledge this wonderful men and women? Of course, I also like to especially thank all our invited guests for honoring our invitation. I say special thank you to the chairman of the occasion, Dr. Emmanuel Abraham, the chairman board of trustees of Top Faith University. My very warm and special appreciation also go to the speakers and discussants for coming to enrich us with their invaluable knowledge and expertise. Finally, I thank all the participants here for finding time to attend this 2024 annual public lecture, and I assure you that the useful and fruitful deliberation we're about to have here will make it worth your while. Once again, I welcome you all to the 2024 annual public lecture of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. And I hereby declare the program open. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely amazing opening address. my president. Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause once again for her. And she takes her seat. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just like she said, this is going to be rewarded. And you need to just not listen, but also contribute. So please, when it's time for questions, feel free to ask questions. Thank you so much. And while we listened to the president of ICSA, we had a very amiable Commissioner for Finance, Akwa Ibom State. He came in while we were listening. Please, ladies and gentlemen, kindly put your hands together for the Commissioner for Finance, Akwa Ibom State, Dr. Linus Nkana. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we will receive the opening remarks from the chairman at this occasion. Please, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, please put your hands together for Dr. Emmanuel Abraham, the Chairman, Board of Trustees, Top Faith University, for his remarks. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think the erudite president has sought to be excused from protocol. I want to also seek to be excused from the elaborate protocol. But let me acknowledge her for driving this wonderful force of ICSA and allowing it to land in the land of promise. Oh. I want to assure you and promise you that having driven this ship here in the land of promise, all the promises are concerned will be fulfilled. Ladies and gentlemen, on this other side is our amiable Commissioner for Finance, Dr. Linus Nkana, from my sheriffs. Dr. Nkana, you're welcome. You were told of our own daughter who consolidates, for me, the gender equilibrium of ICSA. If you observe the composition of the executives and all the activities of ICSA has been dominated, in my own opinion, by gender equilibrium. President. Mrs. Fumi Kundayo, President. Vice President, Mrs. Udo Obana. When you have to grow like this, in a powerful institution like this, is for me, the gender stuff. Congratulations. There was a slight mentioning of Mrs. Obana. I'm privileged to have been fully briefed when the president said an international award winner. I'm aware that she is the current title holder of the champion and the best chartered secretary in the world. I'm sure that is why the MP said she is our export to the world. Madam, you're welcome. Obviously, she's from a wonderful stock, and she qualifies for that kind of title. The pioneer private university in this state happens to have come from her own side. She is the wonderful daughter of my mentor, Professor Obanodon, the proprietor of Baba Kande. The other members on the high table there have been driving the force of ICSA. And I want to thank ICSA once again for finding it expedient and necessary to favor Akwa Ibom states with this kind of program. For us, and for me, it's a privilege. And I'm very thankful to everyone here present for having accepted to be part of this for me epoch making occasion. I join everyone to also thank us for coming out here for seemingly good time. What was built to start by 11, I think we're able to kickstart by 11:20. It's an improvement in the way we react to time. And I think ICSAN is doing a good job. The greatest aspect of it is that apart from the participants, the officials of this program were here quite long before 11 o'clock. I saw the president when I arrived, I saw the officials when I arrived, and they were ready. So for me, it gives me reason to think and believe that when there's good leadership, followership could be influenced positively. I want to thank ICSAN for this initiative and plead that we should try to see how we can manage time better than how we usually do it. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let me also appreciate the fact that a lot of the things I would have loved to say, I have already said. The program has been opened, and I just want to consolidate by expressing my happiness as the chairman of this inaugural public lecture in Akwa Ibom State chapter holding here today. I must also appreciate the local organizers here in Akwa Ibom State who found it necessary to mobilize me to be the chairman of today's occasion. I remember Mrs. Hinton, who led a team to expose this wonderful institution to me. Let me join to congratulate ICSAN for choosing to lend strong words and contribute to the conversation regarding the strategy of public-private partnership, PPP, as a tool for sustainable development. For me, it is foreseeable that dialogues and presentations in this maiden edition of ICSAN lecture will provide reference points and inputs for the implementation and application of the principles of PPP in the Nigerian context. This is evidenced by the theme, which is well known, driving sustainable development, public-private partnership as a catalyst. And the president has already described this topic, this theme, as very, very apt for today's conversation. For me, from the scheduled keynote address that we're going to listen to, it's expected that deep-rooted discussions and interactive sessions would ensue to share thoughts on the concept of PPP. The purpose is also to get great and well-informed insights into the present and future roles of PPP in shaping sustainable development in Nigeria. It's equally aimed at stimulating learning as we gather here today, because according to Henry Ford, that we all know, anyone who stops learning is old. Whether you are 20 or 80, and anyone who keeps learning stays young. And the greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young. Programs like this keep people young, keep the mind young, keep the will of progress young. So ladies and gentlemen, permit me to also acknowledge that ICSAN's position as a leading professional body in Nigeria, dedicated to enhancing the status and practice of corporate governance and public administration, bestows on it very strong responsibility to intentionally participate in the process of enhancing human resource development and encourage professionals to stay young in this regard. ICSAN's role in the conduct of professional examinations, as I've already heard, leading to qualifications of chartered secretaries and administrators, is a testimony of its strategic role in human capital development for sustainable development. As a global voice, you have heard of corporate secretaries and governance professionals. ICSAN's dedication to the development and facilitation of the study and practice of corporate secretaryship to improve professional standards, quality corporate governance practices, enhancement of organizational performances, promotion of excellence and professionalism all these constituent functions that drive sustainable development and economy. I'm also aware that ICSAN's multidisciplinary approach helps to harmonize the basic requirements of business ethics, law, policies, policy formulation. You have heard that there will be a communique, after which the relevant stakeholders in the economic space will be advised. Codes of corporate governance, etc., in the practice of corporate secretaryship. To appreciate the roles and tasks of ICSAN in the sustainable development framework, I will also want us to recall, as already been told to us, as part of this lecture, discussing the vision, the mission, the objectives, the history, what ICSAN does, how it does it, and how ICSAN is different from other professional and chartered institutions. Obviously, records show that ICSAN, with its synergistic relationship with the international body and all its activities in Nigeria, has recorded landmark achievements over the years. ICSAN's partnership and collaboration with reputable institutions and tertiary institutions to foster professional roles is equally very commendable. And I would like to say here that this is very dear to me, very dear to my heart, as one of those in the education sector. I've seen a couple of people here that will benefit or will contribute immensely to this gesture. In this audience, I've seen that we told the professors are here. I've seen Professor Odofa. I think I've seen Professor Michael Ikon, Dean of Social Science in Tufts University. I've seen the acting registrar, Ms. Dama, Tufts University. I've seen the Director of Academic Planning, Tufts University. And I've seen even some array of academics from Tufts International Secondary School. I've seen the Vice Principal Academic, Daniel Inyang. I've seen the Vice Principal Administration, Amarachi Emanuela. And I've seen Dr. Inyang, who is the head of Department of Business Administration. I've seen Dr. Ozo Essien, who is the head of the Department of International Law at University, and all that. So, Madam, you have mobilized the wonderful men and women who have come here to join in benefiting from the corporate social responsibility of ICSAN. I want to thank you for instituting this and commend you for networking with erudite and reputable institutions like this. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been told already that the dialogue on PPP, such as going to happen here today, is crucial for a thorough examination of the concept as a tool for sustainable development and the catalytic role PPP plays. This is so because it's important to understand that the PPP project is the one undertaken through a cooperation between a private individual and organization with government agency such as the states, the national, the local government, both of whom work together to achieve developmental aspiration in such projects as may have the express reason of government alone, by the fact that in many countries, including Nigeria, budgetary provisions and taxes are hardly sufficient to satisfactorily provide the required amenities. Therefore, there exists a yearning gap. This then meets a great need for conscious involvement of the high net worth individuals and organizations to collaborate and work with government towards sustainable development of infrastructure. So the PPP idea undoubtedly offers a feasible and viable option, as it is a formidable tool to address the gap between government's efforts and expected ends necessary to achieve sustainable development in the economy. It is obvious that this public lecture of today would examine and provide roadmap on the PPP and how government and the private sector should consolidate relationships and develop programs to drive development in the country. It is also expected that the catalytic prowess of the PPP will be explored and its advantages given due prominence towards building a more resilient, inclusive, and a sustainable world for us to enjoy. I believe in this because, viewed from the backgrounds and pedigrees of the scheduled speakers and discussants in this lecture, I'm convinced that justice shall be done in discussing the dimensions of PPP for us to understand the framework, the types, relevance, qualifying projects, local and international examples. It will equally be informative to explore the contents and intents of various models of PPP, such as ROT, that is rehabilitate, or break and transfer. Very sure justice will be done to these models. Build, or break and transfer, BOT. Build, own and break, BOO, and all other kinds of models that constitute PPP. The keynote address to be delivered by no less a person than Mr. Tayo Adoloju, the Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria Economic Summit Group, and the discussants thereof by the team of Dr. Laide Zinka. The Honorable Commissioner is already here. Mr. George Uresi, the Chief Operating Officer of Ipoh Air, Madam Ayotola Jagun, Chief Planning Officer and Company Secretary of Oando, Dr. Andy Eyon, Chief Executive Officer of Excellent Community Education Welfare Scheme. All these are wonderful and erudite, experienced people with the pedigree to expose to us today the relevance, the types, the necessity, the contents, and the intents of PPP. So what we're looking at is, I'd like to ask all of us here present to participate meaningfully, as you have been told by the President, in the pending intellectual fireworks, brainstorming, and discussions. As we wait to engage our minds and thoughts on the PPP philosophy, let me share a recent clarion call by the Executive Governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Soludo, regarding what he terms public community private partnership, PCPP, which is a variant of PPP. In his own model, he symbolizes the development of relevance of PPP and helps to domesticate or situate the strategy as a tool for development strategy. Professor Charles Soludo's Anambra State model calls for the state government to massively invite and partner with high net worth citizens of Anambra State to adopt schools, health facilities, build roads, water projects, recreational facilities, etc., for sustainability and optimum welfare utility to the Anambra. For me, if this strategy is pursued and realized, a quantum lift in infrastructural development is possible. This calls for consideration and emulation. I think what is going to happen here today will give credence to this. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to once again thank ICSAN for taking the bold step to organize this lecture. Permit me to also thank them for making me the chair of the maiden edition of the Uyo chapter. I will enrich my CV with this appointment. Thank you very much. Let me also thank the ICSAN National, who has come a long way to Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. I'll join the Akwa Ibomites to ask you to stay cool, relax, and explore the ambience of Akwa Ibom and derive inspiration from the peace, tranquility, and serenity of this great state. May I then invite each and every one of us to join this transformative journey towards actions and shared visions in the pursuit of sustainable development. This program has already been opened, but I, Emmanuel Thomas Abraham, having been given the privilege to be the chairman of this occasion, I want to join the president to declare the 2024 ICSAN Uyo Public Lecture open. The name of the Father, the Son, And the minister. Thank you very much.
Indeed, that is the chairman's remark. Please put your hands together once again for Dr. Abraham. God bless you, sir. Everyone listening to you. It's amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, like you have seen, this has begun. A lot to learn, a lot to listen to, a lot to take home, and please, a lot we expect that you shall also contribute. Ladies and gentlemen, on to the main part of today. I would like to let you know if you have listened to the theme or if you have looked at it. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme being driving sustainable development, public-private partnership as a catalyst. You would agree with me that this is needed in Nigeria at this time. Some people may not get it clearly, but what's sustainable development? It isn't something so big or far-fetched, but actually it's an approach to growth and human development that aims to meet the specific needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to attend to their own needs in their time, thereby creating sustained growth and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the qualities of people that have been in different industries, championing corporate governance and being at the forefront of planning and administration. And I believe that things that we ought to hear, things that we ought to deliberate upon, they will touch on it today. Ladies and gentlemen, please, at this point, I would like to recognize and welcome someone who will handle from here on this part of the event. She is none other than a very reputable governance professional. I speak of none other than a lady who is known as the CEO of the Pathfinders International Limited. She is an experienced governance, public policy, compliance, legal and regulatory administrator. She's a chartered secretary and a management professional. She's a government professional who holds a Master's of Law degree from Queen Mary University of London and has been a chartered secretary and administrator with over 20 years of working experience, having been in the aviation, in the media, and other industries. Ladies and gentlemen, I speak of none other than the Chairman, Publicity and Advocacy Committee of ICSAN. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mrs. Nkechi Onyenomso, FCIS. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, esteemed members of the high table. We're going to the main stock of the matter, which is the fireside chats to discuss public-private partnership. Thank you, Eno, for that. I don't even know how you got that profile. And I don't know how you got that profile. That wasn't in the scheme of things. But right now, we would like to start by inviting our keynote speaker, Dr. Taye Adenolu, to please rise up as I briefly read his citation before he takes his paper. Dr. Taye Adenolu is Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, Africa's foremost private sector-led think tank and policy advocacy group, is a policy entrepreneur, a strategist, an economist, a scholar, a teacher, and a global development expert. Most sought after for his competencies and capabilities in translating strategic agendas into results. Before his current role, he served as the Chief Operating Officer and Senior Fellow of the NESG and the Economic Policy, Strategy and Competitiveness of the NESG and the Okun Model Economic Fellow for Africa and the Middle East. He has over 2 decades of experience and track record demonstrated his commitment to developing and advising leaders, organizations, and nations to stimulate performance, sustainability, governance, and impact across private, public, and non-profit sectors. I beg your pardon. He has worked across several economic, social, and political reform areas and sectors across Nigeria and 14 other African countries, the Middle East, where he has advised business executives and heads of government, including the former president, Yar'Adua and Obasanjo. Tayo holds 6 academic degrees. I think that deserves a round of applause. Including a doctorate degree in economic policy and public administration, with an impactful postdoctoral scholar practitioner career in economic growth diagnosis and multidimensional poverty analysis, economic policy, public administration, and strategic management, and a formal and executive education that cuts across leading institutions like Harvard University, Oxford University, and MIT. Tayo is a senior executive fellow of the John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. His versatility shows in the number of distinguished fellowships he has been awarded from various professional institutions, the Institute of Management and Consultants, the Institute of Strategic Management Nigeria, the National Institute of Credit Administration, Chartered Institute of
in sustainable development, public-private sector partnership as a catalyst. I think we have to begin first by commending and thanking the Institute for positioning a subject that is crucial to our times. And so it's a privilege to delve into both the practical, conceptual, theoretical, and maybe a set of policy and governance imperatives of the interface between the public and the private sector, especially as it has to do with the problems that we face today. Sustainable development, as we all know, is a global policy imperative. I think that when you think today of one global objective based on what this generation faces, this is not just a focus, it's an imperative. We are faced today by unprecedented challenges, global confrontations of a political, economic, and social type, systemic climate shifts and change with severe consequences for global value chains and local value chains and sectors and industries. We are living in a world that has the potential to see a few more pandemics and global shocks in our lifetime. We are struggling with massive democratic system shifts. All our neighbors recently opted out from a democratic project to more autarky dictatorship models, pressured by social discontent with where their countries are going. So regional peace, global peace is threatened. We are seeing two wars in our time. The Gaza war, the Ukraine-Russia war. Widening global inequalities continues to divide the world. Decades after the world order was formed, the world order is in disarray. Rule-based systems that once allowed us to find sustainable solutions to problems, or at least reach consensus, are beginning to give way. In Africa, the interconnectedness of a crisis of food, fuel, and finance threatens us across the continent. And here at home, these pressing issues underscore the urgent need for a thoughtful engagement on sustainable development, as the term actually implies. It is the ability to sustain development. Now, the ability to sustain development is not a new idea. No, as far back as the early 80s, the debates about how to sustain the world started. And at the Rio Earth Summit in 1992, most of the developed countries came to a conclusion that they had mismanaged the world and that the world would no longer be sustainable for them or us. So the OECD countries, as far back as 1992, reached a consensus that there is no progress that is economic alone, that for the human race to progress, it must be a social progress, it must be an environmental progress, it must be an economic progress, driven by the sustainable management of the planet, its people, its resources, and its future. So sustainable development is not a question of simply how we manage resources, whilst that is important. It's an idea that the human race, to build it to last, to build it to be transgenerational, must approach the future different from how we have approached the past. And we have made attempts at this idea of sustainable development. 3 major projects since the 1990s worth mentioning is the world came together at the beginning of the millennium, or at the end of the millennium, on an agenda called the Millennium Development Goals. This was the first attempt at this idea, this philosophy that we can build a future where the people, the planet, our resources are managed in such a way that we leave something for our children. Now, the best way to predict your future, I think Peter Drucker noted, is to create it. The best way to predict the future of Akwa Ibom, of the South, of Nigeria, of West Africa, is not to hope. It's not to hope it. Hope is not a strategy. It is to create it. And creation, especially sustainable development creation, is not just a creation, it's a co-creation. Please write it down. It's a co-creation. It's a co-production. And except it is co-produced, it's not sustainable development. So in 1999, when the world got together, it decided that, well, let's attempt this sustainable development. And it set some goals called the Millennium Development Goals. There were 8 of them. Eradicate extreme poverty, achieve universal primary education, promote gender equality and empower women, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, combat HIV/AIDS, malaria and other diseases, especially those diseases that left Africa behind. Ensure environmental sustainability and foster a global partnership for development. Within this MDG framework, it was agreed that you must bring the private sector along. But at that time, what people thought was private sector should simply put their money. And so we created the United Nations Global Compact, and my sister, Ms. Dragon, will speak about that in a minute. Now, the United Nations Global Compact at the beginning was simply to ask the private sector to vote money for sustainable development. So how did the MDGs go? In most of the developed countries, it was a big failure. But interestingly, back here in the developing world, it made some interesting progress. Resources that Africa did not have flowed. In fact, in Nigeria, we were receiving every year, just for malaria, $3 billion worth of investment. For HIV, $1 billion. And that's made a difference. At least 21 million extra lives were saved from HIV in the 15 years of the MDGs. And 470 million human beings were lifted out of poverty. Now, people argue about how those resources were managed. I will come to that in a minute. Some people argue about how far those kind of resources could have gone. And we can have a conversation about that. But the fact is that without private sector resources, even in the MDGs, we would not have gone as far as we did go. But that coming forward was limited. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you move to 2015, in 20 MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, and said the world could have done better. What is missing in these goals? And several things were missing in the Millennium Development Goal implementation. The first was that there was not a robust conversation with the private sector. The second was that when the private sector was brought along, it was not brought along in a way that guaranteed that the resources for profit and the resources for good met an ethical conversation about sustainable good. So sustainable development has to be a breakaway. It's not about profit maximization. And it's not about just social good. It's about being economically sustainable and environmentally sustainable in a way where profit does not become a trade-off for doing good. So some big lessons from the MDGs was first, we must never compromise growth for climate outcomes. As we can see here in the Niger Delta, the painful lessons of growth, extractive growth, at the expense of our environment is still living with us, and maybe will live with us for many years to come. I was in a small town in Bayelsa, and you can't even find in a 100-meter radius anywhere where you can dig a borehole with water. Everything is polluted. Number two, social enterprise must be brought as innovators to solve big problems. The problems we face today transcend what policy alone can solve. So new technologies, new techniques, good practices must be delivered at scale to solve the problems of today. How do you solve the problem of 133 million multidimensionally poor people? When you have left 28 million children, childbirths unregistered, how do you resolve that overnight without some innovation? So lesson number two is that big problems at scale require big thinking and big innovation. The third lesson we learned from the MDGs was the governance lesson. Only well-governed public sector, private sector, and civil society can guarantee sustainability. Once these institutions, public sector, private sector, civil society, are not well-governed, then the question about the reasonable, accountable, responsible, responsive governance of our resources, the planet, people, and profits cannot be answered. Number four is investment. The MPGs taught us that there is a difference between investing in natural resource for sustainability and investing in natural resource for extraction. And that the difference poses a challenge on innovation and on leadership. When the world started to think about how to find a sustainable way to generate energy, it did not lead us into destroying of our communities, it led us to solar. And in the decade of the MDGs, what happened was that leading universities created better technologies for solar. And today we are discussing renewable energy as an alternative to fossil fuel. That happened because someone started thinking differently about what to invest our resources in. Number 5 is catalytic finance. There was an acceptance that the money needed to change the world is simply not money budgeted and appropriated by government. That's important and that must be governed properly. But you must bring all forms of capital, traditional capital, right? Social impact capital, impact funds, philanthropic funds, plus development finance must come together to transform society, and all capitals must be deployed for a sustainable society to emerge. Lesson number 6 is that the public-private interface is not the same in every country. That where partnerships begin in the US cannot be where partnerships begin in China, cannot be where partnerships begin in Nigeria. Actually, where partnerships will begin in Akwa Ibom will not be where public-private partnerships will begin in Lagos. You must begin where you are. And that those interfaces are defined by the stage at which the institutions are. So let me spend some time on the public-private interface. The catalytic role of the public sector and the private sector means several things. 1, a public sector that does not prepare itself to fulfill certain sustainable mandates can never be a good partner in a PPP. So we must answer the question, what makes a sustainable public sector partner? What makes a sustainable private sector partner? What makes a sustainable civil society or development sector partner? Because not all development finance has worked for Nigeria or Africa. In fact, some will argue that development finance has found its way to not work for the developing countries. So there's an attitudinal dimension to the partner that matters in the interface. So in a developmental state, the minimum you require for at least achieving a sustainable partner in the public sector is that 1, that government is deliberate, strategic intentionality. Government is deliberate about utilizing public sector resources to execute overhead capital projects that are necessary to. Now, strategic intentionality is important. It means you cannot just sit down and buy a budget with the things you like. It means that you must ask, where are we going first before the budget starts? It means that every item in the budget must be chasing a public good or a social outcome. And except that is the case, there's no strategic intentionality. And there's no strategic intentionality, there's nothing to partner on. What is a partnership if it does not have an objective? The nations that changed the world had this concept where the government intentional about what it wanted to partner on. There was an American president that emerged and said, in a decade we'll put a man on the moon. That one statement of intent redirected budgets, resources, and redirected the energy of the private sector. For a decade, the American private sector geared itself towards reaching the moon. Every university in the country geared itself towards contributing to reaching the moon. Every science research institution geared itself towards reaching the moon. By the time Americans got to the moon, they had created thousands of patents, thousands of ideas, thousands of products along the way. Because public sector provided a strategic intentionality. Government has to be deliberate. Number 2, the state must participate in those productive activities that get things started. A lot of times people ask the question, what is the business of government? In the 80s, the business of government was everything. The 70s and the 80s, government started NITEL, government started NEPA, government started Nigerian Shipping Lines, government started NTA, government started what else? Rail. Government, I mean, everything in a developmental state begins with government's ambition. Now, what happens is that as the private sector develops, government can then begin to shift its frontier objectives to bigger things, whilst it allows the private sector to begin to play. So the model for a country begins with where you are. There are some things people say government should stop doing today that the private sector is not ready to do. Okay, or the citizens are not ready for the private sector to do. And there are some things that government should no longer do because the private sector now does it efficiently. The interface is determined by the participation of government in productive sectors and how well they've done. Unfortunately, the last 4 decades, if you review the government-owned enterprises, because we entered a dramatic capture of the state under the military, what happened was that these government-owned enterprises that could have become productive became very unproductive. So in 1999, under President Obasanjo, a radical approach was taken. Anything government was not efficient with should simply be liberalized, privatized, or commercialized to entities with the capacity to do them. So in 1999, we shifted our own public-private interface to reflect the level of development where government was. The challenge between 1999 and 2004 has been threefold. 1, 85% of the PPPs we've implemented in the period have done badly. A lot of the failures in the PPPs have come from this lack of intentionality, where the public sector was not intentional about outcomes for the country, and the private sector was not interested in outcomes for the country. They were both interested for either political outcomes or private outcomes. So the philosophy of sustainability was not built into the partnership. As a result of that, rather than rising, many of our PPPs and privatizations and commercializations have gone very badly. Of course, there are a few examples to platform. For example, I flew the beautiful flight of Ibom Air here, an example of a great partnership that is working on delivering world-class services. So the public-private interface, the characteristics of the players, it matters. On the role of the private sector must bring to the interface an intentionality beyond profit maximization. In other words, beyond making money, beyond doing good, doing well, there must be the intention to do good. Look at your neighbor and say, tell your neighbor, do good or do well. Both are possible. Okay? So the idea that you want to come into a space, the private sector must come in and ask, what can we do to maximize profit and maximize value for our people? Those are not two mutually exclusive conversations. They must happen in the same philosophy of business and in the same philosophy of the product or the model. When it doesn't happen, you create unsustainable production and unsustainable consumption. And that is what has destroyed some of the sectors that are extracted in Nigeria. A lack of sustainable production, a lack of sustainable consumption. Now, there are examples of countries that did it different. Nigerians always compare ourselves with the Asian tigers, that Asians did it. And there are many models that explain how we and the Asian tigers, countries like Malaysia, Singapore, were in the same place 40 years ago, and how we have grown apart. But one of the things people do not note is that these countries had a strong business consensus. So, for example, The Japanese had a strong consensus on development and competitive advantage. The Japanese created a national consensus on radical acquisition of technology. They said for our country, we will acquire the technologies in the world that hold us back, and we'll use it to partner with the government to make a difference. Something that became known as the Japanese Incorporated. The South Koreans had a business consensus on creating a consumer class. In fact, what they decided to do was to make sure that at least 80% of their population was well educated. And then they now taught their people to save. They used the saving to build a credit culture. And that credit culture created the markets they now needed to build everything else. When you look at the Indonesians and the Malaysians, they have a consensus on social contracts. That if in a public-private partnership, we give a private entity undue advantage, because that's what happens. Something that government was doing, maybe a seaport, you now partner with an entity. That seaport's owner automatically is conferred some serious advantage over other players. Does that partner have a social contract with the people, a deep sense of partnering for national outcomes? Over the years, we've created a lot of billionaires. Many of them say they are self-made. But we know from the kind of arrangements that they are state-made. The Asians created state-made billionaires, but the state-made billionaires had a social contract with the country. So it is the cabals of South Korea that built the roads, built the airports. It is the Keiretsu of Japan that connected the value chains. It was a big conglomerate created by government intervention and partnership that went back and built the linkages with the medium, the small, the micro, and the nano firms and connected them together. We are missing in our own partnership model this consensus, a consensus in business for competitive advantage, a consensus in business that will collectively build a consumer class of highly educated, highly skilled workers that can drive industrialization, and a consensus on a national social contract. Now, let's come to my own experience. In 2015, I was asked to review why the MDGs did not work, and maybe why the SDGs would work. And some of the things that became clear was, one, sustainable development is not something that you can import. You can import a general consensus, but you must come and agree with the people at home. One of the challenges with the SDGs is that we have not had a frank conversation amongst Nigerians. So the SDG says nobody will be left behind, right? It says leave no one behind. That's the sustainable development goals. But as of today, 133 million people are multidimensionally poor. We've left 133 million behind. 5 years to the end of the SDGs. So it seems as if we borrowed the concept, but did not own the philosophy at home. Two is that shallow partnerships are built from a lack of agreed philosophy and ideas. And we are lacking ideas, and that's why the PPCs are not scaling at the levels they should scale. Number three, there's poor tracking of partnerships. Whether it's working, whether it's not working, so the partnerships derail. For example, the first decade of concessioning of the seaports, our linear connectivity as a country, fired. We have almost 26 maritime and seaport concessions in Nigeria. Fired, we were doing great. The second decade, when we stopped tracking, we stopped reporting, stopped holding people accountable, started to come down. So PPPs must be tracked. They must be monitored. Number four, lack of capacity. If you partner with someone that doesn't have capacity, well, after the partnership, there will still be no capacity. So one partner did not have capacity. I went to partner for capacity, but partner with someone that does not have capacity. Lack of capacity plus lack of capacity equals what? Lack of capacity. So you can't partner in a sector where you brought people with you are looking for money. You brought people with no money. we're looking for technical expertise. You brought people with no technical expertise. Then we're all asking, why is it not working? The partnership was designed to fail because the deal structure did not deliver capacity. So a lack of capacity and capabilities in designing PPPs for sustainable development creates a huge issue. Then there are problems with institutional and policy framework. The number one reason in a global study, while PPPs in Africa are not scaling, is political instability. Nobody trusts us that as soon as the next man goes, and as soon as the current man goes and the next man comes, some African man will not yank the contracts away. Okay, so let's go to two more things that I close. When we discuss PPPs, therefore, the interface and the character of the actors defines whether they bring to it the philosophy to make it work. Now, let's presume they don't have the philosophy to make it work. PPPs must have finance. The biggest problem in sustainable development is money. Today, Africa's infrastructure is valued at about $98 billion. That's what we must spend every year as a continent to move our infrastructure forward. All the money available to all of us in Africa is about $45 billion. What's the gap? Give or take 48 thereabouts. Now, with such a gap, partnerships are crucial, but the partnerships cannot sit in the traditional boxes. AFDB, IMF, World Bank, those are maxed out, and a lot of times those come with strings that already has guaranteed that we are trapped. Most of Africa is dealing with a dead body and commitments that they can no longer sustain. And this is for those that speak a good talk and those that don't speak a good talk. From Accra to Kenya to Lagos to Abuja, we are all dealing with a similar problem. And the debt on sustainability comes from the fact that we've been dealt a bad hand. We entered the global financial markets and system disadvantaged in institutions, disadvantaged in know-how, disadvantaged in capacity. So there's a path of sustainable development where political leaders pay attention to how they partner with the rest of the world. This is something that the Asians did better than the Africans. The Asian miracles came because whilst they partnered with the rest of the world, they kept a deep partnership with their people. Does it work for our people? I think Prof was mentioning the civil society dimension or the community dimension. Does it work for our community? Does it give us outcomes we want? This is something that we are missing in our model of PPPs. We ask whether it works for the contract, but we do not check whether it works for the people. This must change. The second thing to note is the stage of development you are at as a country matters with what you pursue as PPP. For a country that, like us, that deals with primary production, we are what we call a primary production dominant economy, type 1 economy. Certain things are critical. So a type 1 economy has some characteristics. Let me list them for you. Number one, you have passive public sector agents who have a heavy reliance on assistance. You have a relatively medium to large private sector, but they are constrained because the environment does not allow them to be competitive. You have a large informal sector. They are not organized enough to have a voice, right? You have unions, but mostly passive. They shout once in a while, but they are mostly dominated by the public sector. State intervention tends to drive everything rather than interventions that create markets for the private sector to participate. And generally, you have low performing PPPs in this country. So this is what we call a type 1 economy. Nigeria, by just the characteristics, is a type 1 economy. And the key we've seen with the Asians to pivot from a type 1 economy to a secondary production economy or a more efficient economy is the following. One, a shift to an entrepreneurial governance model. A model where government asks itself, what can I do? What are the opportunities? How do I partner for the people? And leverages its resources efficiently to drive the innovation of its people to partner and build products, contracts, projects that can be areas of partnerships. And this can range from social sector to economic sector, from adopting a school or a health center to, an airline, to building a pipeline, a road, a seaport. The second thing is private sector development is an unfinished work. In Nigeria, the size of the informal sector means that we have not sufficiently deepened the private sector. So deepening private sector development to create more well-governed institutions becomes the mandate for a country like ours. So it's not just big businesses that should have good corporate governance. No, we should go through a process of inspiring and stimulating the actors in the informal sector to come in. But what are the incentives for the informal sector to come in? The Asians use the conglomerate to bring the small companies in. So what the Asians did was the Kinitu will have a conglomerate, maybe a big flour mills, right? And the flour mills will now nurture all the medium and small firms that do maybe primary processing of maize or wheat. And they will then nurture millions of smallholder farmers in a way that they become organized and they aggregate them in such a way that economies of scale and efficiency is done. The big conglomerate does all the R&D, high-yield seeds, highly efficient fertilizer, highly efficient agricultural practices are coming down from the big conglomerate to empower and create a stronger value chain. Private sector development is an imperative to have a strong private sector that can partner with a strong government. What we've done is that we've weakened private sector. More people want to be informal than formal for many reasons. But without dealing with the adversarial relationships that keep private actors informal, we will not be able to grow the private sector. Now, last but not the least, is the readiness to explore new approaches. So one of the things that happened differently in 1999 was we tried to privatize what is known as NITEL. It didn't work. Then we tried to sell it. For 2 years, it didn't work. I think President Obasanjo then realized the problem is leave NITEL alone. Partner with the private sector. So when he basically went and said, look, okay, so what I want to do is I want a vibrant telecommunications sector. Then the idea started to create a market. The market was licenses given to people who just went out to compete, right? And that created the impact we needed. So sometimes the growth we need as a country will not come from a partnership first, to come from allowing the actors define the interface. So with Seaports, it was a partnership, it was concession. But Lekki Free Trade, Lekki Seaport was not one of the concessions. It was basically somebody, but they were basically given a license to go and build a new seaport, right? What is the difference? President Obasanjo said to himself, well, if one doesn't work, the other one might work. And today both work, right? There's a vibrant seaport in Lekki that is alive and well. So we need to reimagine, okay, PPPs not as orders given to us, but as we need it. Today, we are dealing with food security of a scale where the president has basically just said, crash the prices of food and import all the food we need, because very likely this year we may not produce enough food, right? I think the directive was circulating yesterday. I have a suggestion for that type of PPP. Why didn't we just give those that will farm 1 million hectares of land, 1 million hectares of land, 10 of them to farm at scale, right? The different crops we need, and then let them manage the security. That the security is a problem. Every problem in Nigeria is a potential PPP. On a different model than maybe we've seen elsewhere, but that's how we think about problems. How can we partner? How can we mobilize the collective capacity of societies to solve problems? And all we need to guarantee is 3 things. One, that the structure of the deal is good. And what did I call a good deal? It's a good deal if you do good while making good, right? Second is the capability of the partner. Some of the worst concessions in Nigeria were given to people that have no capacity. Third is even great concessions then go into bad protection. Number 3, protection of well-designed PPPs is crucial to sustainable development. The reversals in the last 2 decades of PPPs, 62% of concessions had some form of reversals within the last 2 decades. That's a huge number. Why don't we design the PPP well from day one and all commit to it? Now, the problem is if it's a bad PPP, we might as well reverse it, right? The good news is some PPPs work, like I said, IBOM, MM2, Apapatinga, and so the truth is that PPPs can work in Nigeria. We know how to do it. How do we do it? Structure a good deal. Good for the business, good for the country, good for the people, right? How many of you get into IBOM here and you say to yourself, it's a good deal, right? You enjoy the service, but you say it's a good deal. That's important, that the people say it's a good deal. Number 2, it must be a good deal for government. If the government is not making money to kick the guy out, but if it's a good deal for government and not for the people, it will die. So some airlines that were PPPs died because the mix between equity and debt made it a bad deal, right? So the structure of the deal, the capability of a good partner, and the protection of a well-articulated, well-crafted PPP is everything. Okay, let me close. I come from a PPP of a very different type. I'm the CEO of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. In 1993, private sector sat across from government and had a conversation about the economy. And what we agreed was very simple. Once a year, we will look at the economic scorecard of Nigeria and use the brutal realities of the data to have a frank conversation on the economy. And since 1993 to date, we have had an annual conference less a year, where all we do is use the data to challenge government. And we've gone from military rule to President Obasanjo to President Yar'Adua to President Jonathan to Buhari, now to President Tinubu. People ask, why does it work? It works because there's a good philosophy. It's not about public sector, it's not about private sector, it's about Nigeria. 2, we have good partners. We agree that making Nigeria's economy great works for all of us. The partners have capability. Okay, we can hold governments accountable with economic data. Government can bring its evidence that has performed or not performed. Right? It's a well-executed contract because every year we do better and Nigerians see we do better. So lessons we've learned from 3 decades of a public-private partnership, dialoguing with the governments of federal, state, local, and all the 3 arms of government is 1. Partnerships can work when they are grounded on principles that are consistent and anchored in good governance values. 2, partnerships progress through mechanisms of open engagement and accountability. 3, partnerships deepen if you agree that the rules of the engagement are the rules. 4, partnerships endure if you remain agile and adaptive to never-ending change. 5, partnerships are honored if you place the national interest above private interest or political interest. Last, partnerships are fueled by deep, consistent, honest, respectful, empathic, thoughtful, open communication and conversations. My experience and the experience of my forebears at NESG underscores the power of collaboration, of mobilizing the collective capacity of society towards sustainable development. If we will win in our time, if we will achieve 45,000 megawatts of power, which is what we need, if we will ensure that no child is left out of school, if we will build world-class hospitals for which other people will come here for health tourism to attend, if we will deliver another 500,000 kilometers of high quality, 5-6 lane roads across the country, linking every part of the country, if we will deliver the gas infrastructure required to end kerosene, because every house can get cooking gas, we will do so because we agree as Nigerians that our collective partnership, built on trust and accountability, can make it happen. So we can create a future where Nigeria thrives, and public-private partnership is a tool that can make that legacy possible for us. And we can then bequeath to our children a Nigeria that is very different from the present. God bless you, and God bless Nigeria.
You don't clap as though you listen. That was amazing. Please put your hands together once again for Dr. Tayo. God bless you. That's amazing. I can tell you one thing for sure. It is very true that the reason that we'll be facing some of the problems we see is because of how these partnerships are approached. And we need to very amazing. I could listen to you all day, sir. Thank you so, so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have people who join us online. Please, I've asked for information to be sure that there are people who can still, that if there's anyone who wants to join, you can still join. So please, it's live on Zoom. I want to give you the meeting ID. Please, in case you want to let more people join us. We have shared that previously, but please, I'll just share that again quickly. Kindly take note. If you would want someone to join, please send them this meeting ID. Please just write it down. This meeting ID 817-3412-8386. Please 817-3412-8386. And the passcode is 241168. The passcode is 241168. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me use this opportunity to let you know that the Akwa Ibom State government is here with us. We have the presence of our very respected Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State. Please put your hands together for Senator Akon Eyayi, ably represented by the Permanent Secretary Office of the Deputy Governor, Dr. Mrs. Grace G. Please put your hands together for Dr. Jim. You're welcome, ma'am. God bless you. Thank you so much for coming. I also want to recognize the presence of the Executive Director, Development and Advancement in Obong University, Akwa Ibom State. Please put your hands together for Mr. Imo Akwanudo. Mr. Udo, you're welcome. Thank you so much. God bless you. I would like to recognize the presence of Mr. Victor Edet, Director General, Akwa Ibom State Fiscal Responsibility Board. Please put your hands together for Mr. Edet. Oh, Mr. Imo Akwa Ibom happens to be a relative, a brother to the the elder brother to the Vice President of ICSAN. Please put your hands together for that very remarkable family. Anytime I hear a name connected with Madame, there must be a very wonderful position attached to it. And I pray, Lord, that in our families, we are lights from Akwa Ibom, shining around the world like that, in the mighty name of Jesus. Yes, I told you, she's an expert from Akwa Ibom, and we are proud of you every time. Oh, no, you just cannot tell. Please round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, moving forward, please. Like I told you, people have joined us. And I would like to use this opportunity once again to thank ICSAN, and please, just a little moment to recognize, especially the people that have joined us and some of the leading members of ICSAN online. Please, wherever you are, we appreciate you. The Oyo State Chapter ICSAN, the ICSAN Oyo State Chapter Chairman, please put your hands together for Mrs. Pausea Oluko, ACIS. Thank you so much for joining in. And the chairman of ICSAN Abuja chapter, Mrs. Chidima Angel, ACIS. Please put your hands together for her. Thank you. We have Mr. Bode Ayeku, FCIS, Mr. Tony Okoa, FCIS, Mrs. Benedicta Shade, FCIS, and Mrs. Ronke Okojabi. These are executives of the national. Please thank you so much, ICSAN council members, for joining. We see you from online. And also, I want to recognize very, very specially, I know I recognized them initially, but please let me give honor properly to whom honor is due. The ICSAN Akwa Ibom State Chapter. Please, I'd like to recognize the chairman, ICSAN Akwa Ibom State Chapter, who is coincidentally watching online as well. Please put your hands together for Mrs. Chinonyere Ini Ememabo, ACIS. Yes, she is not present in person, but she's here. And we have the Vice President ICSAN Akwa Ibom State. I speak of none other than her worship, his worship, Mrs. Teresa Ntom, ACIS. His worship, Teresa Ntom, ACIS. Please put your hands together for her. I also recognize Mr. Enyedi Sunday Amos, FCIS. This happens to be the pioneer chairman of ICSAN and also a council member. Please put your hands together, boys. Thank you. And we have the immediate past chairman of ICSAN Akwa Ibom State Chapter, Mr. Ime Asibam, FCIS. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I gave you that time to be able to share the link and ask other people to join us because the rest of what we are talking about is still very important. Governance professionals, administrators, what are you doing in your own capacity to ensure that we have sustainable development and that the public-private partnership we talk about is sustained and we do better going forward than we have done so far? Ladies and gentlemen, I will hand the microphone right now back to the moderator for the rest of the talk. Please put your hands together for the very beautiful lady. You're welcome, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we should also put our hands together for our MC. She's doing a great job. Thank you very much. I would head straight on to the fireside chat and to discuss with us today the presentation done by the keynote speaker. I have very distinguished discussants with me. I will just briefly go through their profile. One of our discussants we've already been recognized is the Commissioner of Finance of Akwa Ibom State, Dr. Linus Nkang, FCA. Please can we give him a round of applause? Dr. Nkang is the Commissioner for Finance, Akwa Ibom State. He was born on the 24th of October, 1968. And prior to his appointment as commissioner, he had served as the State Accountant General and Commissioner for Finance during the administration of Dr. Udom Emmanuel. He's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Dr. Nkang holds a doctorate degree in accounting from the University of Uyo, a master's degree in business administration from the University of Ado-Ekiti, and a BSc accounting from the University of Cross River State, now the University of Uyo. Dr. Nkang has served the state in many capacities, including as state coordinator, SFTAS, and the state winning many bank awards and prizes. He's the chairman of the State Fiscal Responsibility Board, chairman Debt Management Board, chairman USAID State to State Implementation Committee, director Aqua Savings and Loans Limited, and director Anchor Insurance Limited. He is happily married to an entrepreneur and a beauty magnet, Mrs. Doris Nkang, and the marriage is blessed with lovely children. Let's give him a round of applause. Another of our discussants with us today is Ms. Ayatola Jano. She's currently the Chief Compliance Officer and Company Secretary of Owando PLC. She is dual qualified solicitor in the United Kingdom and in Nigeria. She's a chartered secretary and multidisciplinary legal and compliance executive with 3 decades of experience in local and multinational corporations across several continents. She's an entrepreneurial C-suite leader with an executive background in management, corporate and commercial law, compliance and business ethics, risk management, ESG, corporate governance, and board level leadership. She has a passion for corporate governance and its critical role in ensuring business sustainability. And some of the recent governance initiatives that Ayatola has been involved in include co-chairing the technical working committee of the Code of Conduct for the not-for-profit sector, set up by the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment in Nigeria, as well as conceptualizing and co-chairing the private sector implementation of the National Ethics and Integrity Policy, and conceiving the development of a corporate governance guidelines for MSMEs in Nigeria in conjunction with the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. She works with the UN Global Compact Network Nigeria and the Convention on Business Integrity. She is passionately optimistic about Nigeria and its critical role in the Commonwealth of Nations. Let's welcome Ms. Ayatola Jano. And representing Dr. Adieyo, we have Mr. Asukwo Tong, who is in the house. Please, can you join us up here for the fireside chat? He's the Director of Programs and Admin. Let's give him a round of applause. So we'll go straight on to the conversation, and I will start with Ms. Ayatola Jano. Dr. Tayo has given us a textbook, and our chairman has also given us an extended textbook. So from everything that has been said here today, what are your general thoughts on public-private partnership based on the conversation you have had in the board so far?
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to stand on all existing protocols, but also thank my institute for the privilege and the opportunity to participate in this public lecture, on such a really important topic, which is really about nation building. Ultimately, one of my major takeouts from the keynote address, actually, I had written it down. There was something Dr. Tayo said about only well-governed public, private, and civil society organizations can guarantee sustainability and sustainable development. We're a government institute, and we have to ask ourselves, beyond the discourse, what is our role as individuals, as governance practitioners, in sustainable development, not just of our own organizations, but what is our role in sustainable development as regards the nation itself? There's a lot Dr. Tayo said also around capacity building, building capacity, building expertise. You know, I'm really grateful that the Institute has a top-class, world-class training program, and a mentoring program that builds expertise. But how do we then go on with that foundation, that strong foundation, to build capacity within our nation? And I think that it is imperative that we get involved in policy formulation and policy development. A few years ago, I mean, I would say maybe about 6 years ago, I made a conscious, intentional decision. Dr. Tayo talks a lot about intentionality, and it's really key that I was going to come alongside MDAs, government agencies, ministries, departments, and agencies to help to shape policy that creates the enabling environment that he's talking about for the private sector to be able to go in and create that environment that leads to economic growth, that leads to job creation. This is key, because the government may have all the best intentions and the financing may be there, but if the policy framework is wrong, if the capacity isn't there within the MTAs that are meant to govern, ensure accountability, monitor, provide the legal frameworks, provide the governance frameworks, if it's not there, then we're really swimming against the tide. And so for me, my conscious involvement in working with the FRC through the UNGC, sometimes just directly, I remember when we were working on the national ethics policy, I was interested to know that we actually had one that was launched by the former President Buhari, national ethics policy. Who are we as a nation? Who are we as a people? What are our core values as a people? Because again, it's one thing for government to lead. It's another thing for the citizens from whom government comes, from whom it's from the citizenry that our leaders come, to have the right values, the right values to be able to again drive sustainable development, because you need the right values as well. Quite a part of the capacity, it's also the values of integrity, the values of hard work, the values of patriotism, that you put country first above personal gain. That we also think about the future generations, and we think about legacy. So it's not just short-termist in our approach, because a lot of what we do sometimes can be very short-termist. There's something he says that Dr. Tayo mentioned about, unless certain things are co-produced, they are not sustainable development. We do need the commitments of government, the private sector, civil society, but above all, we need the commitment of the people for sustainable development to work. You mentioned the recent problem of food insecurity that we have, that is looming, that is at our doorsteps. The solution cannot be short-termist. The solution, if it's short-termist, will place further strain, not just in the long term or mid-term, but also in the short term, on our currency. We can't import, we should be the food basket of the world. We should be the ones exporting food to the ends of the earth. Not bringing in food with the level of rainfall we have, the sunshine, the fertile soil we have. There is a disconnect somewhere. And you know, I feel that in all of this talk is also the role of the various parties, the role of government in providing a secure environment. Security, it's very, very key. It's not just the intentionality. We can't be sustainable if you don't have secure environment. So security becomes paramount in in securing a sustainable future for us as a nation. Dr. Tam mentioned the debt on sustainability due to poor negotiating. And sometimes, again, that is as a result of vested interests. We need to move beyond that to get to a point where when we're negotiating, it is with that national consciousness in mind that we are leaving a legacy, we're building a legacy for future generations. And we're not saddling future generations with more debt in the name of, just trying to patch what we have. And that calls for novel approaches. It calls for innovation, and innovation is one of the key tenets of these public-private partnerships, that we're able to look at a problem differently, and we're able to come up with innovative solutions that are locally contextualized, which is another thing you mentioned. Sustainable development is not something that is designed in the halls of New York, in the United Nations corridors of power, and then, all the nations of the earth now sign up to it, and then, we're told to go forth and prosper. We have to contextualize locally. But even you talked about the different types of funding and the funding models. I was speaking to someone at the Green Climate Fund about the way they fund initiatives. So we have the Great Green Wall Project, and many of you here may know about that. Transparency International issued a report, I think it was last year, on the status of the Great Green Wall Project. And compared to the millions of dollars, and I'm talking about tens of millions of dollars that had been given to Nigeria for that project to stop the encroachment of the Sahara Desert, only about a 4% performance index was what has been achieved. And then thinking, why? Why is this the case? But again, it is because the funding model is to give the money to the sovereign, and then the monitoring and evaluation happens much later on down the line, right? But in terms of how that money is deployed and implemented, there is very little influence that the partners of the project have over how that money is implemented and deployed. As I began to speak to the gentleman in charge of governance, they're based out of South Korea, again, another, and I had to say to him, why don't you get the investment bankers or the banking community involved in this project? I'm not talking about the development banks per se. Put these monies in escrow. Ensure that a committee is set up of all the partners, that including the community partners, and then see how we can set up milestone payments and how the money is deployed so that there's a bit more accountability in the framework, not just of the funding, but the deployment of the funds, because that's the only way you're going to see sustainable development. I work in the oil and gas industry. We've done community development in various forms. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't worked. On the whole, it hasn't worked. And so we then decided that, within the petroleum industry at the PIA, as a company, we were pivotal in ensuring the inclusion of this community trust model. Why? Because we had deployed this model in Ebendo, one of our when we have an asset, and it had worked very well. And so we said, we need to put this in legislation and make it the model going forward, because it's a model that we've tested and that works. And thankfully it's there. And it's how to then ensure its implementation and to ensure that it is well implemented and monitored and implemented. And that the communities where the resources are able to benefit not just again in the short term, but in the long term, from these resources that we say belong to the entire nation, but are in their doorstep. And the activities of the companies in extracting these resources, they're not only are they not able to benefit positively from it, but in fact, it's become almost like a curse at their doorstep because it's polluting farmlands, polluting rivers. You know, we need to change the way we deploy, the way we work together. And we need to ensure that in everything we do, we're putting our nation first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Putting our nation first. Dr. Lyons. Ms. Ajagun has spoken a lot from the private sector point of view. Could you share with us, from the public sector point of view, your thoughts about the paper presentation done by the keynote speaker?
Thank you very much. The president of these great institutions urged our exports to their cycle. Thank you so much. The chairman of this important gathering, the man I want to be like when I grow up, the speaker, so while he was speaking, what was going through my mind is, why can't we have this kind of personality to be the president? Imagine if it is. I wonder if we can still be where we are today. One day, God will help this country, that the right person will have the right job to do. Thank you so much. Other colleagues who are here to discuss the paper. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. For me, I am the government here, the public sector. I'm a great beneficiary of this election today. The paper presented from the keynote address by the president of institutes, the chairman of occasions, remarks, and the lead paper. I think we are very much enriched, honestly. But you know, one thing is, I observed audience, very cooperative, generous audience, listening with rapt attention, and presentation, very committed and passionate presentation. But my question is, after now, what have they gained? It won't be the same, because Nigeria, we know too much, but we have little or nothing. This kind of presentation is very transformational. It's very informative. It's very active. It's what we need now in this country to change where things start. So I think I'm really very happy to be here, like a government. I have learned a whole lot. I want to thank you also for giving me an opportunity to bear, be here. Right from when this topic was thrown to me that I will participate in the discussion, I tried to, go into some reading out. I don't have that. But you see, at times you be doing things, you don't know what you are doing is the right thing. But because I've gotten involved in searching, trying to know about EDP as a catalyst for driving sustainable development, I'm better right now. And I believe also that if you look, a lot of us in the public sector, the local government, state government, or the federal government of Nigeria, have the opportunity that I have to listen to this and put it to practice, especially the policy formulators of this country. I think things should be done differently. And we have listened to this speaker at this. by successive government in Nigeria to enter into PPP for purpose of delivery of either infrastructure or goods and services to these nations. And they have failed at different levels. So great lessons, this speaker really exposed why PPP are different than Nigeria has failed. Also to find solution that if steps are being taken to correct the way we work, certainly we will realize the objective of good behavior. Now, as a government, every government, consciously, deliberately, our intention and always is to be able to provide the good and services that people need, that is capable of reducing hunger and improving the well-being of this. That's good governance. So we pursue good governance. At times, the methodology we are adopting in pursuit of a good governance could be the problem why we do not realize the expected or targeted results. But I think lectures like this or discussions like this will shape the way government should do things. So what I am advocating here is beyond this all, ideas emanating from the discussion here should be put forward. And I recommend strongly at the government side, because most time the culprit is always the government in the world. At the level of AGM, Nigerian Governors Forum, this kind of discussion should be put up to them. And I believe because they are at the level of the highest exclusion of these that offend. Today, Nigeria, we are trying putting structures in place to enhance ease of doing business in this country. There is an agency put up for that. And they should also have, we should have a way to break into these levels and have these discussions. A lot related. Because certainly in Nigeria today, let me just leave it mind to Nigeria and my state. We can attain sustainable development without collaboration of the private sector and the public sector. Reasons are very obviously the paucity of funds today available to government will at all times inhibit it from executing major projects that brings about sustainable development. And we all know by virtue of what I'm doing for my states today, I'm exposed to where I know the revenue capacity of Nigeria is really very bad. That's the truth about it. And that government at all levels, when we're able to pay salary, pension, and probably debt burdens obligations, you don't have a lot of money to embark on bigger, gigantic projects capable of sustaining the development that we're talking about. That's one. So the private sector, better now than ever, need to come up with it. And government should also be ready, like the speaker is about, intentionally put an arrangement in place that the private sector should be able to calibrate partner to be able to drive development programs that will help us development goals that we all want. That's very important. But why PPP, apart from the positive fund, we know today the world is driven by technology and innovation. These are not areas of specialization of the public sector. That's the truth about it. It is the private sector. And you can achieve much without technology and innovation. Therefore, the effective collaboration of the private sector and the public sector certainly will be able to give us the sustainable development that we want in this section. That's the truth. And also, when we look at the need, like in my state, my governor, Pastor Omoyini, at the inception of his administrations, came with an acronym, ARISE, which I'm wearing, ARISE. This is the agenda, it's development agenda. You understand? Would arise for agriculture to enhance and promote agriculture because we believe that's the sure way for him to ensure food sufficiency for our climate, you know. Rural development, you know, because we have adequate rural development that will stem the tide of the migration from rural to the urban area and all that, and even development in the state. Then, as infrastructure renaissance, understand? I mean, as I just coming to Bible State, you're welcome. And I believe that to enjoy the bit of good roads that work and have in the Bible State there. This is what the governor also anchors to do more to ensure that we have good road networks and other infrastructure in our state. Then security, which is the focus of all government of all levels in Nigeria today. And we know the menace of insecurity in Nigeria today. And then education. You all know the role of education in promoting development in our society. Now, in the government of Bible State, pursuing these development goals, for today, I've been able to learn wow, and will also be able to contribute also more. That beyond what the government can do, we could also be able to invite the private sector to partner with the state government in order for us to achieve meaningfully, concretely, the agendas for development that we have set out. Now, while I was actually going through, this topic, I didn't realize that success in government, what we have been able to do and can point to as some development strike government has been as a result of PPP, whether it was deliberately, consciously, or otherwise, but it's been as a result of PPP. Even when we probably didn't know the real import of the PPP. Then, for instance, this child talks about our air. This is the PPP that has worked in our states. That's the truth about it. Now, if you enter our airport, there's a very didactic structure there, which is meant for our maintenance or how we base on maintenance. It's one facility is a facility that started, in fact, the 3 last successive government had to work on it, but the current government of Omoyini determined to take it to conclusion. In fact, putting that structure in place, I think the government has been able to do over 95%. That's the truth. Now, we are at the level of how do we operate that facility effectively, profited, and also achieving the aim for which it was set up. We realize that we need to select a very good maintenance, specialist in aircraft maintenance, a private sector that will collaborate or partner with us to run that facility. That's where we are now. And for me, from what I've learned, these conscious and deliberate effort of the government to be able to, draw the private sector into it. I think I have a lot to contribute to the excellencies government on this, that government can do all. One of the things I don't know we in government cannot do well is management. We can't do management very well. That's the truth about it. That's why you see amounts, even in Nigeria, so many projects that will aim to change the shape and the being of this country economically, solve that will bring sustainable development. Some are born to here because we have not been able to really integrate the private sector into the running and operation of some of these. That is the truth. I know somebody got it. The Jakarta Steel Mill that would have been one of these strategic and critical, investment of this country is at the state that they have been even 2 decades ago, just because government have not been able to put an enabling environment that attract the private sector to go. Imagine the importance of that kind of investment in this country. And there are so many. Now, in areas of tourism in our states, we have the hotel belt by Akwa Ibom said 100%. But for management, the government invited world-class brand manager of hotel. The managed that facility for more than 10 years, and it was a huge success. Somehow, when that partnership did not go ahead again, today is almost at the condition that it's not too good as it should be, just because I've separated the private sector from managing. I mean, the very best private sector from managing that facility. There are so many. I look at the 4 Point by Sheraton. It's a well facility owned by government, but we work in the private sector that is managing. For now, but they're into operation about a year or so. And it's looking very good. We talked about because all the private sector need. So what I'm trying to really bring out here is that PPP is catalyst for sustainable development anywhere in the world, and in Nigeria. And in Akwa Ibom State, we need to do a whole of that. But we have in my state, we've been working on actualization of the deep support. But the 3 last successive government will be on it. The state have done what they should do. But we all know that is a strategic economic project or investment that has made a whole lot, of benefits to the people of the state. And I'm not saying that what is calling its actualization. For me, it's still inability to be able to partner with the right private sectors. So our attention is aroused even more that for us to actualize that project, which means a whole lot for this state and even the country, we need to really look for a better way. Maybe I may need to say our lead speaker again, so that we look at how can we actualize that project for us. It means the whole lot to us the world. And the government cannot do it. There is in terms of the finances required, in terms of the technology, in terms of innovation, even the management of that kind of identified. Instead of we have identified the project very. So we need to ensure we have a partnership with a very credible, very competent private sector to be able to actualize that. And we have so many, like I said, when I find my eyes and my mind around our state, I have discovered that what we even have on ground, in terms of infrastructure and amenities and all things, are projects that the state government either aim or intend to partner with the private sector to be able to actualize them. So this expository lecture for us, very important, like I said, as the public sector, I learned greatly from this lecture. And I believe also that it's going to really be of good benefit and enrich us for us to be able to fashion out development project under PPP in order to have sustainable development for our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. the Commissioner of Finance, Akwa Ibom State. The topic is driving sustainable development, public-private partnership as a catalyst. I would like to ask Mr. Eto. Your organization currently has a relation, the private organization, but you work closely with the government, you have a partnership with the government. In line with what has been discussed today, what are your feelings towards achieving an effective PPP and how well is it working in your organization?
Thank you so much. One thing that we speak up for the day for the next to say on the topic. For us at AQs, I would like to say that we are a success story of PPP. One, at the onset 2001, AQs is 33 years old today. At the onset, we saw the menace of exam malpractices in Akwa Ibom State, not only in Akwa Ibom, in Nigeria, and we ventured to help young people, 5 of them, gathered together and explored how best to help. We collaborated with the State Ministry of Education, started that process, and they supported it. Midway, we got to know about HIV. The first case of HIV/AIDS was recorded in Akwa Ibom State. And then there was the World Bank project, and the state government needed people to mentor community-based organization. And our organization, AQs, was one of the organizations selected to do that. During that process, we had a lot of capacity building through the World Bank project. And we scaled up our HIV/AIDS program. We worked with the Nigerian Red Cross Society. And the Ministry of Education, again, partnered with the Ministry of Education, where we did an essay competition, what I know about HIV, that is in 2001. And we had AQs from all the secondary schools in Akwa Ibom State. We had volunteers who marked that at the end of the day, we had gifts items and prizes given to those people. From there, we scaled up, and today we are funded by both United States government, the Global Fund, supporting projects in across 12 states in Nigeria. About the topic about the sessions today, PPP as catalyst for sustainable development. It is very apt at this point in time when we talk about this and the abuses. I think for me, what is very important is that government has to be very intentional, like the lead speaker did say, about putting up the framework and the policies for PPP. Let's take, for instance, in the area of HIV/AIDS intervention where we are working. We are supporting over 130 something PLHIVs in Akwa Ibom State, for instance. We've been involved, we have over 7 to 8 implementing partners working in the state. When you look at that, look at the population of Akwa Ibom State, you know, we are talking about a sizable number of the people. And then in the last couple of years, up to 8, we look at government participation in, say, the annual World AIDS Day event. You see that it's not significant enough. A number of implementing partners are doing what they can. Without that, yes, we have the Ministry of Health doing the coordination, we have SAPA doing that. But that framework for leadership, that framework is a challenge. The other one has to do with the strategic plan for the intervention, not only in Akwa Ibom State. Before now, we used to have strategic 5-year rolling plan, strategic plans, you know, for interventions. Right now, those strategic plans are not on ground. I've been to a state in Nigeria, in Cross River State, let me give them the credit, when the governor sat through a meeting, an HIV/AIDS summit, asked the partners, what are you doing in my state? At the end of the day, everybody gave, all the partners gave report and say the government is doing this in this local government area, in this local government area, where are you working? At the end of the day, everybody had to sit up and do the right thing. Now, so that is the area that the government can really come in and help us. Putting in place that strategic plan that coordinate the activities of all the partners that we want to have. I also look at the issue of young people that the creative economy is currently the second contributor to the IGR. In our private state, we have the Council for Art and Culture with rich cultural heritage. What is that policy that ensures internationalization? We are now in the global village, export of these cultures, to the rest of the world. We have the Raffia City. I read the Nigeria 50 compendium that was done. They only mentioned it as the oldest local government area in Nigeria. But the Raffia City, we have young creatives coming up with a lot of artwork, a lot of crafts. They are done there in Ikorekwe, and nothing is happening. Where is that policy on taking our products, helping the private sector to scale up, get their thing to be standardized and be acceptable at the international market? I want to thank the O&O, O&O Foundation. We had a partnership with them. That's another area that the government needs to look at, where private partners can deal with their area of core competence. They are good, they have the resources, and they are good with oil, and they have need to support the people. And they come up with the Adopt a School projects. And they invited us, other community organizations, what can you do for us? Can you implement this project? O&O brought the resources. AQ did the actual on the ground running. We collaborated with the Bayelsa State Ministry of Education, supported the school management board. We collaborated with the Rivers State Ministry of Education, supported the school management board, provided support for over 250, adopted about 15 schools across the state, and supported them. At the end of the day, it's seen as another project that was done by O&O and maybe AQs. There is no sustainability. You go to emergency management right now, there's no sustainability plan. There is no contingency plan. If there is an emergency, so we can take the first 100 people to, while preparing for help to come from other places. Here are the areas that I'm interested in. We also look at in education, we talked about livelihood. All these things are interrelated. When we say we're going to look at sustainable development goals, all of them are interrelated. Let's look at, I have seen, I'm from Akwa Ibom State, I have seen a community where NDDC provided NEPA lights, solar system. And then, because the community knew that people were going to come and steal their NEPA light, their light solar system, they consulted their traditional institution. And they said, nobody steals from here. And they carry out their injunction placed on in their community. At the end of the day, it's people that, if I have a friend that maybe has a tendency to steal, they contributed money and send the people away from the community so that they will not go and steal and maybe cause them to have issues. Some of them claim that they could die if their friend bought anything with money, proceeds from the sale of such items. They contributed money and sent those guys out of the community. Today, those solar systems are stealing. How can we collaborate, coordinate? Partner with these people, partner with this local community, partner with those private sectors, and then see how we can live. I want to say a big thank you. Also, I want to also look at the Institute of Capital Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria outside of the national public lecture like this, engaging with government at various levels. We have the planning, we have the ministries, all here, various parastatals, and see how we can also bring them together. Like my senior brother and the honorable commissioners talked about, we need capacity mentorship. We need, like in the ministry, I've seen where the last implementation in HIV/AIDS, we have provided laptops, computers to ministry from, in fact, throughout the years, for the past 10 years, I can count the number of computers provided. But each time partners come in, you don't have computer for maybe the SABC, this person to work with. They're always complaining. How can we coordinate this so that assets, all of these are well protected, so that people can recognize the contribution of public-private partnership to sustainable development? I would say thank you.
Thank you very much. So if you have questions, to make it faster, please write down your questions. The MC is going to go around and pick your questions, and then we hope we'll be able to answer them. So please write down your questions, please, because we're going to go straight into the question and answer after this next round of discussion. So. Okay, so in 2 minutes, Ms. Jago, maybe we'll do 1 minute of your final thoughts, and then 1 minute of your view based on what Ms. Neto said about the framework. I know you do a lot of work, you're a director for the United Nations Global Compact, and I know that that will have a framework. Can you speak to the essence of having a framework in the PPP to make it work, and also share with us your final thoughts? I think we want to more.
Okay. Thank you. So I also want to say that I'm not just a director, Uto is also a director of the UNGC local network, and we both co-chair the anti-corruption thematic group at the UNGC as well. So a lot of the work that we do all the time in collaboration with different MDAs, we sometimes find that it is very useful. Not for me going in as a Wando PLC, because again, you spoke about regulatory capture, you spoke about political capture of PPP programs. It's really important that individuals in the private sector, individual companies are not able to also capture government agencies, that when it comes to solutions to sustainable development problems, that we take an industry-wide approach in fixing those problems. And again, I must say that as members of the NASG has policy commissions that covers every single sphere of industry and life in general, from health to education. And that's also another platform because of the strong interface between the National Assembly, between government basically and the private sector. So the NASG through the policy commissions is also another way, I'm talking about frameworks, to really engage on the policy side and to ensure that we're involved in the nuts and bolts of creating a framework that allows for success of these PPP initiatives. Also an organization like the UN Global Compact, which is a global organization, it's part of the UN framework, has a lot of resources available and a lot of relationships at our disposal that enable us to, even at a local level and at a global level, get involved in again, the nuts and bolts. And I'm talking about the nuts and bolts because first and foremost, I'm a governance professional. First and foremost, I'm a Nigerian. Who cares about Nigeria? But I'm also a governance professional, and I'm speaking to governance professionals who are members of ICSAN. In the sense that, you know, there was a project I did at the local level. There were 20 of us that came together to come up. The reason why we did that is because we realized that people are not waiting for regime change, for change to happen. They're impatient for change. So we have activists, political activists, environmental activists, who are knocking at the doorstep of the private sector saying we want change. Because they realize the power of the private sector rather to lobby government for change. I would find also that the next generation, and we're talking about sustainable development, they lack trust in the electoral process. So again, they're going to look to alternative ways of getting change, whether it's through social media or it's through lobbying the private sector. And when I talk about lobbying the private sector, it is through canvassing, it's through demonstrations, and holding the private sector responsible to really like bring about societal change, right? And so it's very important. So we sat down and we thought, okay, how can we prepare companies, organizations, not just companies, because transformational governance is about organizations being able to bring about transformational change within their countries, within the context of even their regions. And what are those things that need to be considered by any organization? And the transformational toolkit, governance toolkit is out there. Governance is core. And I think this is what I want to leave with, because I know I'll have 30 seconds left. That governance, and we are a governance institute, right? Governance is key to being able to bring about that sustainable, so to being able not just to catalyze, but to achieve sustainable development. We are behind with the achievement of the SDG goals. SDG 17 is about partnering for the success of the goals. And that partnering has to be private sector, public sector, not for profit, but I add on to that. Each and every one of us as citizens of the country have to align ourselves and be intentional about a nation that works, because we have a large part to play in making sure that it works. Like the gentleman spoke, talked about the members of the community coming together to safeguard the solar installation that was there. We in Ebendo have a community that when other people from other communities come to try and sabotage our assets, they rise up as a community to say we will not pause and stand in our gallery. We are doing very well, thank you. And they are the ones who are vested in protecting the assets in their community and chasing away anybody that comes to disrupt it. So I think above all is saying that yes, public-private partnership, but who are the people who make up the public sector? Who are the people who make up the private sector? They're individuals. Who are the people who make up the not-for-profit sector? They're individuals like you and I, and we need to be intentional about leaving a legacy, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, should we live to see them. But even if we don't live to see them, we need to be very intentional about leaving a nation that works for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Look, Doctor, in 2 minutes, your final words.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Like I've said earlier, the subject matter is very, very transformational. I just recommend that leveraging on the power of people. And a lot of advocacy should be introduced into the education context, that before the leaders come out of the school, before they be imbibed with the principle, theories, and practice of people. I think when this consciousness is well bred, we will get exactly what we want. And the issue of establishment of framework, very solid concrete framework for PPP should be adopted in the public sector. This is very important because you see why the time PPP doesn't work, a lot of risks and fears. In Nigeria, we have four years of governance. And even within that 4 years, maybe effectively is only 2 years, other 2 years really distracted. Just really distracted, and it's not enough for anything sustainable to be achieved. If it's not well protected and it's trying to enforce. And the legal framework should be put in place. The policy framework should be put in place. And even its questioning framework should also be put in place. So we've just started very well, and we will take this far and wide, incorporate all that are necessary to get this awareness. Certainly, PPP might also have, the right place in our development programs to be so.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So we're going to go to questions now.
Yes, please.
And fastest fingers.
Yes, please. I know we asked that you write your question, but anybody with a question, please? Anybody will just take a few so that this will be boring. Oh, sir, okay, I'll just have to hand you the mic, sir, please. Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I would love to take it, but let's just go on, sir. Thank you.
First and foremost, I thank the ISAN for hosting this kind of public lecture here in Akwa Ibom State. I'm quite delighted to be a participant. May I refer to an earlier quoted suggestion by His Excellency, the Governor Soludo, that the community should be involved where public projects should be situated. Why can't there be a sustainable effort in Nigeria towards mechanized agriculture, which will definitely involve the communities where such mechanized farms are situated? Thank you. That's my question.
Okay. Let's attempt to it at once. Okay.
Let's take all the questions again.
Please, I just want one. Okay, I saw one hand there that I wanted to go to, a woman, and please, sir.
Thank you very much. Morning, everybody. Afternoon. This is not the first time PPP is being discussed. PPP is not a new thing. And over the years, we've been hearing it from on television, discussion everywhere, just like the commissioner said. Maybe you'll be introduced into schools, let the children start learning it. But I want to say, everyone, the governors, the president, they know about PPP. What is making it so difficult for this to be implemented? Like in Akwa Ibom, we only know that, okay, the airport is being privatized. What happened to other projects of government in the states? If they know how to privatize the airport, why do they privatize other projects to make it sustainable? Even the road, I know there are some roads that can be built, operate, and transfer. You build the road for a certain number of years, and then you hand over to government to manage. Within that particular years, if the road gets bad, you're the one to maintain it. And that will bring sustainability. But you see that they will do the road today, the next 1 or 2 years, before the government is finished, that road is bad. Government know about PPP, but what is really happening? You know that it's because of political will. They don't have political will to do that. And so they should come back and they sit back, not only coming to lectures like this or having lectures like this, which I believe in such lectures like this, permanent secretary should have been here. Yes, because sometimes they are the ones that stand in front for the commissioners. They should have been here. You have the secretary, the secretary of the state. So please, my question is, please, government, why don't we implement this PPI that we know in many projects that we carry out in the state for sustainability? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very amazing opinion. Please, one more from the woman. That will be all that we can take, please.
Okay.
Please, no. Okay, let me see if I can take it. So please, we'll just go back to our discussions today.
All right, thank you very much, MC. Essentially,
There is there's a question from online. I think I'll just show the honor of just that one. So please, this question is, Question from Musa Maigari. Question, what are the strategic that the corporate secretaries and the public-private sectors will continue to adopt in driving sustainable and environmental development in Nigeria? What are the strategic measures that the corporate secretaries and the public-private sectors will continue to adopt in driving sustainable and environmental development in Nigeria? Musa Maigari Musa, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that question is well suited to the president and the chairman of council of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries. What strategic moves will the institute adopt to ensure an effective, this is Fumi Ekebare, to ensure
That question, Mr. Nigeri. So at ICSAN, we continue to collaborate with governments at different levels. And of course, this kind of discourse we are having today is another way of having a good handshake between the private sector and the public sectors. We can see a lot of takeaways even from what the Honorable Commissioner has stated as some takeaways from this engagement today. In terms of sustainability and environmental issues, we at ICSAN, we are also very, very intentional. And I'll just give just an instance because of our time. So a couple of days ago, last week, we had the stone-laying foundation of our new National Secretariat. And in coming up with the prototype of the building, we were very conscious about innovative ways to also make sure that our environment is also sustainable. That's one of the few things that we also make sure that we pay attention to that. But in all, I think essentially is to continue to have discussions around pertinent issues that will necessitate sustainable development and a good handshake between all the players within the different segments of the economy towards ensuring that we get this right. And that it's not just about the talk show, it's not just about the lectures back and forth. It is about holding people in places of leadership accountable. That's also very crucial. And I said it during my address that usually we would also make communiques or programs like this available to policymakers and every other relevant stakeholder, so that we don't just finish talking and leave it here. We actually also continue to monitor progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman of Council, Mrs. Fumi Ekebare of CIF. On the question on why can't we have mechanized farming, agriculture, I will ask the society to please speak to that in just 2 minutes.
The question you asked is why? Strategic intentionality. How? So Nigeria has 84 million hectares of cultivatable land. If you want to do mechanized agriculture, you must at least achieve 1 or 2 HP per hectare. Brazil has about 8 HP per hectare. Malaysia about 6.5 HP per hectare. Nigeria has 0.2 HP per hectare. So when you begin to discuss, my brother, mechanized agriculture, you first ask where will mechanized units come from. Solution 1 is take our locally made manufacturing plants and retrofit one to produce mechanized units here. So take Innoson, for example, and let's give Innoson a contract to produce the first 1 million mechanized units, right? Now, once you do that, right, you automatically create a pipeline for the mechanized units to come. 2, mechanized units need mechanics. Right, the countries with 8 HP per hectare, it means on every 10 hectares, you're discussing about 20 mechanics. 20 mechanics times 2 million hectares of land, that's 40 million mechanics, for example, depending on how many you have per hectare. Now, then you now discuss the operators of the mechanized units. So when we discuss mechanization, it's not simply giving farmers tractors, no. It is a whole ecosystem that changes to transform agriculture, which is why in every state in Nigeria, there's a graveyard of tractors. Every state in Nigeria has a graveyard where there are carcasses of tractors because we buy the tractors without the ecosystem. So to transform agriculture, you must bring the private sector in and say, look, on the delivery side of the tractor, that's the mechanized units, the repair, the maintenance, the training of mechanics, deliver it. Now, you then have to finish the land side, which is each state must bank land. Nigeria needs to, every state should at least account for 1 million hectares of land bank for agriculture. Now, once you've done that, you then go into a negotiation with the communities that says, look, your community now is not about a land bank. The agroecological potential of your community is this. Yours is cassava. We will provide you the seed, the fertilizer, but we will connect you to an off-taker that can buy it off you, that can now aggregate at scale. Now, once you do that, the mechanized units can now work per hectare on land clearing, land cultivation, and earn their money back. The problem is that we are building models that because the model does not do good for all, it dies. Once you stop funding it, it dies as not built. We must build models that if you take the government out, it keeps working. Because mechanized units uses this one. If you pay the operator salary, you maintain you buy spare parts. Who's providing that value chain? So my brother, mechanized farming is an ecosystem deployment that requires public sector and private sector to sit down and decide that they will do it. We've not yet had that conversation.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Tariq, for that acknowledgement there. And then finally, I think that Dr. Magnus has already spoken about it, but maybe just for a minute. Why can't we have other projects privatized by government to ensure sustainability?
Thank you. I did mention the payment project that the state government acquired, we have already identified, and we started working with the private sector. And like I mentioned, a people hotel, the airport. More are coming. We know those of us that have Bible said we've seen the failed tropical projects. I want to assure you that the present government of Pastor has already taken steps to work with them. So find first person to ensure we revive and refurbish that abandoned project so that they will be able to render the services that it was intended to. You talked about it, to boost tourism in that state, natural beaches. We are in talks almost at the conclusion stage now for us to bring Banite, to be able to promote that tourism, natural tourism side for the benefit of our people. And so we have realized quite on that, and beyond that, our government has also pursued structures in place that will really enhance this PPP. There's a law in the pipeline, the law of PPP, to be set as of 70. That law will also establish state PPP council, and then the office of PPP. These two agencies would believe once that law is in place, would be able to promote and enhance PPP in our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of the fireside chat. Can we give everybody a round of applause? And even better than that, yes, ladies and gentlemen, please clap, please clap, please clap. It has been amazing listening to our very dear discussants who have shown and shared a whole lot about what they understand, what they think we should do going forward as governance professionals, and what they hope that if we try, it would work. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that as I have learned, you have learned. So a big round of applause once again.
At this point, please, I would like to welcome to the microphone respectfully the Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State, who is here, ably represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Office of the Deputy Governor. Please, to join this conversation and say a word or two, please put your hands together for Dr. Mrs. Grace J. You're welcome, ma'am. Your Excellency.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. The chairman of the occasion, the president and chairman of the Governing Council, EXAN, my honorable commissioner here present, other distinguished guests who are here, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the already established protocol. I stand here representing the Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State, who would have loved to be here, but because of other state matters, she is not available right now, and she has asked me to sign in for her with a written remarks, which I am going to present. A remarks made by the Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State, Our Excellency Senator Dr. Akole Yaremi, on the occasion of a public lecture organized by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, EXAN, Akwa Ibom Chapter. Today, 9th July 2024. I feel really excited participating in this public lecture organized by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, EXAN, Akwa Ibom State Chapter. I commend the national and the state chairman and the entire organization for putting together this wonderful event. Really, it is a wonderful event from the lecture that I have come to hear and from the discussants. Kudos to you all. EXAN, without an iota of doubt, is among the foremost professional bodies in this country, which have maintained high professional standards, relentlessly sustaining the culture of excellence despite the odds. The parent body based in the United Kingdom, now known as Chartered Governance Institute, CGI, established since 1891, is globally renowned for its unparalleled contributions to the training and supply of skilled manpower in corporate governance, risk management, company law, human resource management, financial management, etc. Considering the fundamental rules of these skills in the successful management of organizations, both in the public and private sectors of the economy, it is said to acknowledge EXAN as one of the key contributors to the survival of our national economy, especially through an in-depth knowledge of the provision of the Companies and Allied Matters Acts. to a very reasonable extent, the act itself is a product of the expertise, resourcefulness, and experience of members of EXAN. This gathering today, we can attest to that. It is against this background that I consider the establishment of a chapter of the organization in Akwa Ibom State both timely and beneficial to the community, economic policy, and industrialization drives of the present administration. The implementation of the ARISE agenda undoubtedly needs the services of key professionals who understand global best practices in corporate governance and other areas of service. As this administration consciously stares the state out of the unenviable civil service titles to a robust private sector economy, members of EXAN definitely have a big role to play towards the actualization of this vision. On this note, I commend EXAN Akwa Ibom chapter for organizing this public lecture and for its thoughtfulness, choice of the theme, driving sustainable development, public-private partnership as a catalyst. This thing is absolutely reflective of this philosophy, goals, and pursuits of our dear Governor, Pastor Umoinos' administration. It is now clear to right-thinking people that government alone is incapable of solving all the problems and providing all the services required to have a wholesome state or nation. Beyond foreign direct investments and other efforts needed to complement government's efforts at the developing the states, direct partnership with reputable and capable private sector operators is needed to accelerate our infrastructural, aviation, maritime, agricultural, and tourism developments. The funding requirements, risk exposure, manpower needs, the level of experience, expertise, and efficiency it takes to successfully execute and profitably manage certain important projects make public-private partnership PPP inevitable. In other words, neither governments nor the private sector can handle such alone. Yes, what needs it and the people will benefit from it. This is the biggest justification for the desirable marriage between the government and the private sector for PPP. It can manifest by way of build, operate, transfer, goods, build, on, operate, both, build, operate, lease, transfer, both, joint venture, concession agreement, etc. I am sure these different types and models of PPP will be extensively explored by the guest lecturer and other resource persons. This lecture further proves that indeed there's a chapter of EXA in our private states. And that chapter is wearing a thinking cap with its sleeves rolled up forward. With its numerous initiatives and investment dotting the landscape in need of expert nurturing for survival and growth, the government will not hesitate to draw from the expertise of EXA and its members. However, you must cultivate the habit of closely following emerging developments and promptly drawing government attention wherever and whenever your intervention is needed. Thank God, we have a listening governor who came from the private sector and understands the importance of productivity, professionalism, and efficiency in both governance and project execution. Once again, I thank you for organizing this lecture, and I believe this culture of public enlightenment will be sustained for the benefit of our states. I wish you an engaging, enlightening, and intellectually stimulating session. Thank you so much. I think we have what for your graduate has already been done. What you have gotten from the lecture. Thank you so much, sir. Our Excellency will be for such a conference without support. So she has sent a token to support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Please put your hands together for the Deputy Governor and her representative. Please, kindly just hold on. Let's, Mommy, please, kindly just, let's come up stage for a group photograph, please. Yes, the members of the head table and the Deputy Governor's representative, please. I hope everybody in the discussants are here. Please, photographer, are you here? Oh, one person is missing, Dr. Mr. George Uresi. With your permission, my president, please, I would like to join the photo to represent Mr. George Uresi. I hope that is okay. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Okay, we have everybody here. The president, vice president, Your Excellency. Okay. Okay, what's it? Thank you. Okay, is that all right? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for our lead discussants. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you so much, sir. All right, please, at this moment, please, we have awards to present. I would like to call on the registrar of ICSAN.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to present plaques. So the chair, the keynote speaker, and the discussants. We have the chair Dr. Emmanuel Abraham. The clock will be presented to me by our president, Mrs. Fumi Akinbayo, CIS.
Hello.
Distinguished participants, I'd like to very much like to appreciate each and every one of you. We still have a full hall after about 3 hours of discussion. This shows the attention and the importance of what we have been discussing today. And I want you to kindly appreciate yourselves with a round of applause. Thank you for the patience. So about this time yesterday, please can you join us? About this time yesterday, we were on a toxic visit to the chairman, board of trustees of Top Faith University, in person of our annual chairman of this of today's public lecture. And what was meant to be a toxic visit turned out to be a monumental tour of the university, and we're all very amazed and impressed. It was an inspiring moment for us as they took us around the university, looking at the standard facilities, innovation to learning, and so much more that we saw. And we're really proud and delighted that the chairman willingly, happily, and just like a father that he is, agreed to chair the public lecture of ITSAN for this year. Please appreciate it for us. So, thank you very much. On behalf of the Governing Council of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, and indeed the entire members of ITSAN, we want to say thank you so much. We believe that this is just the beginning of greater collaboration between ITSAN and the university. We know that Top Faith is a group, and indeed, what you are doing really shows forth the power of vision. And that is why we continue to encourage that government cannot do it alone, but should continue to partner with private individuals who also have the best interest of this nation at heart. And that one person among so many other Nigerians is our
meet with Mrs. Nkechi Onyeso. Mrs. Nkechi Onyeso, we need your attention. Oh.
Ms. Ayatollah Jago, FCIS. I know when I first spoke to you about this program, you were in Geneva. And you squeezed and squashed and did everything because of your love, not just for the every question you answered in your contribution. However, as a member of the institutes, we didn't expect anything less. Thank you for your continuous service. Thank you for your continuous participatory membership. And thank you for making a difference wherever you go. Thank you so much. So on behalf of the first female president and chairman of council of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, Mrs. Fumi Ekundayo, FCIS. Yes, please give her a round of applause. And the entire council members and the LOC of the Institute, we say thank you again. We appreciate you. And we know that when next we call, you will answer. Thank you very much.
The next part goes to the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Akwa Ibom State, Dr. Linus FCA. And to do that, we have a Professor Mo Bofia on this call. That's the Dean of the Faculty of Law at Faith University. Sorry, the name is Professor Imo Udofa. Sincere apologies.
Honorable Commissioner San, Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, delighted to have you as a discussant today's public lecture. It's a good time to you for positive and impactful contribution to the public lecture. Session of their contributions thereby presents to you this plan. So on behalf of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, I hereby present to you the plaque as a recognition and appreciation of your impactful contribution to this public lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really humbled and honored for this privilege. I don't know what it takes to be in Denmark. I like professionalism. Also, many professional. This is very unique, very distinguished. This is where professionalism is thriving. So very happy. Well, I wouldn't be in a forum like this where excellence is being put in place and celebrated and we will support. No, it takes the box to organize this, all of this to organize this. I personally support the right of some days successful women.
Thank you so much.
The next plaque goes to Dr. Andy Eyo, ably represented by Mr. Asukwo Etu. To give this plaque, I'm inviting the chairman of LOC, the local organizing committee, Mrs. Inemia Waji, Etan ACIS.
Dr. Andy Eyo, represented by Mr. Asukwo Etu. We want to thank you for your contribution to health, education, and the community services sector. Thank you for building a brand that started locally but has gone global with international recognition. In recognition and appreciation of your contribution as a discussant at the 2024 annual public lecture of ICSAN, we present this plaque to you. Thank you. Please, a very, very big round of applause to ICSAN, please. Please clap, 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 clap. Appreciate ICSAN. Appreciate ICSAN. One of the things I appreciate the more about them is the fact that we came here on time, and we understand how it could go sometimes with a discussion like this, but they tried and we have tried and we have done our best and we haven't exceeded so long a time from when we expected we would end, because this was to close somewhere about 2:02. Okay, thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for staying through with us. Thank you for learning, thank you for contributing. And at this point, after we've heard so much, we would like to offer a vote of thanks. I would want to call on Dr. Okay, the chairman, oh please. May I welcome once again the very, very erudite, very well-spoken, very agile. You can see as her hands, very, something is happening, very amazing. Very, are you clapping for the chairman? No. That's not how you clap for my chairman. Please put your hands together for Dr. Abraham for his vote of thanks. Thank you, sir.
I think you should clap for yourself first. Just clap for yourself. Just keep clapping for yourself. It's been very long seeing professors clapping. I saw Professor Odofa, I think I cited Professor Ikon and the rest of the professors in the house. And I've seen some other erudite scholars. And fellow members of ICSAN. I was exchanging views with the president of this entity. And I want to borrow the words of the Honorable Commissioner. It's a very unique institution. Very unique. You know, I have had occasion to be part of programs like this in this very hall. And I've had occasions to chase up certain occasions like this in this very hall. When it comes to a moment like this, where the chairman has to make closing remarks, I think sometimes you just see a couple of people just at the front seat or at the back. And today I'm amazed. I'm, in fact, not surprised because of the uniqueness of ICSAN. The patience, the resilience, the humility, the attention that has been given to this program is unparalleled. Let me, from the point of view of closing remarks, thank Dr. Tayo. When he finished the presentation, I told him he was just unveiling an economic philosophy. Doctor, thank you very much. There's something that has been given to you as a challenge by the Honorable Commissioner. I think it's promising. I think they said you should begin to think of becoming president of this country. You see, he didn't say that just the father, Dr. Tayo. If you listen to him, it was conceptual, philosophical, practical, factual, down to earth and real. If you listen to him, you see where part of our problems emanate from in terms of everything. In fact, as he was talking, PPP, public-private partnership, something even entered my head when he used the word trust. And I know that there's something like trust deficit in this country. Trust. PPP can as well be private partnership. He mentioned something that, not because of time, we are not dwelling on it. A situation where if you are partnering, you should partner to bring value to the table. So if you are deficient in trust, one part, the other part is deficient in trust, and two of you go into PPP marriage, where are you going to achieve? It's part of the situation he highlighted here. So apart from the PPP of the public sector, I think we should as well invent trust that we can even do private partnership and help government to provide infrastructure. So ladies and gentlemen, let me very sincerely, on behalf of ICSAN, thank you for coming here, sitting through since before 11 o'clock, and this is almost after 3 p.m. This number of hours, and you are glued to your seat. In fact, you are unique as ICSAN is unique. Thank you so very much. I want to, the discussions for me were wonderful. I sat there and I got encouraged. I concluded by saying, I have come, I have seen, I have conquered. I don't know about you. I want to believe you have come. You have ate. Have you conquered? Will you implement? Will you imagine some of these things and begin to even internalize them? Dr. Tayo talked about character. Some of the inconsistencies in the challenges of PPP is a character. You shift the goalposts when a striker wants to score. You shift it. This has become characteristics of Nigerians. And he mentioned a lot of international examples that we should learn from. One good thing that is important is that if you want to examine the IQs of all of us here, it's not less than what happens somewhere else. But I think what is less is our character contents, our trust deficiency, which today's lecture, having to provide a background for people should be net. to resonate, to encourage us to reflect. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for aiming at improving the status of our thinking process when it comes to partnership for the common good. Partnership for the common good. We all of us keep blaming government and we keep shifting the blame. Government must do everything. Who is government? Who is government? Everyone is involved. So therefore, programs like this sensitize us. And we are working as psychology, as our own the necessity for us to partner with government. So that government will even be aware that you are conscious of your rights, you are conscious of your role, you are willing to do your best. Dear Nigerians, think of what you can do to Nigeria, and not necessarily what Nigeria can do to you. Thank you very much. God bless you. And before I step aside, you saw that the Gabriel and the president made a few remarks talking about us. ICSA, I want to say that Tufts University is able and willing to continue to partner ICSA. This one is going to be like a PPP from the perspective of not for profit. But this one will be for value. No matter whatever you are going to do the valuation, if it becomes profit, so be it. Whatever value comes out of it. We met yesterday, like you said, and the university would be willing to do a good MOU with ICSA to foster further developments, to create forums like this. We at the university level, for having invited us, and we having come full house here, that is a challenge. In addition to whatever support we had done before this process, Madam President, we will, as a university, retaliate. Thank you very much.
Don't you just love the chairman of this public lecture? Put your hands together once again for Dr. Abraham. Thank you so much, Dr. Emmanuel Abraham. God bless you. It means so much, ladies and gentlemen. However, he will retaliate. We pray to God that ICSA can take his blow of such retaliation because he is very agile. If a man as agile as this says, I will retaliate, you need to take. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much. And I was corrected, that was a closing remark by our chairman today. The Falcon is yet to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, before I would let her take the microphone, please, I want to thank each and every one of you and also let you know that ICSA Akwa Ibom State Chapter has something for you. There shall be a training organized by ICSA Akwa Ibom State Chapter on the 25th of September, please, 25th of September 2024. The theme is duties and responsibilities of modern administrative officers. Please, for those of you here and people online watching from anywhere, if you'd like to be a part of it in Akwa Ibom State, the theme, duties and responsibilities of modern administrative officers. Registration fee is 20,000 naira only, and the venue will be Fresh Spring Hotels. Our keynote speaker will be Mrs. Ekerebong Umar, the head of the Civil Service Commission, and the resource person will be Mr. Enyekemen Finba. Corporate bodies and ministries are encouraged to sponsor their staff for the training, and please your advice to also be a part of it. Thank you very much. We want to thank you, and we also want to use this opportunity to thank and recognize Barrister Emmanuel Eti, FCIS, PHF President of Rotary Club of you. You're welcome, President of Rotary Club. Please, wherever he is, put your hands together for him. Thank you so much for coming. I recognize very specially the chairman of Kaduna State Chapter of ICSAN, the chairman of the Kaduna State Chapter of ICSAN. He is equally a council member of ICSAN. Please, Alhaji Habibu Tijani, Alaji Tijani FCIS. Please put your hands together for Alaji Tijani, who's joining us online right now. Thank you so much. I recognize that Parawa Otweko, Fiorida Umar, the Chief of Staff, Mbon Parawa Ibibio, who is representing the international president of the Mbon Parawa Ibibio. Please, a big round of applause for him. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, for the vote of thanks, please join me as we welcome the Falcon herself. I once referred to her as Akwa Ibom's sweetest exports to the world, and I mean it. Please put your hands together for the Vice President of ICSAM, Lady Uto Ukwana, FCIS. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. Please, as she walks away, I want her to stand here so that we can all applaud this wonderful moderator. You have done exceptionally well, connecting the dots for us this morning. Thank you very much. Typically, the MC gets forgotten, so I don't want you to be forgotten in the vote of thanks. So good afternoon once again. It's been quite a long day. First, let me thank God, because it appears God is an honorary fellow of ICSAM. When we came in the morning, it was very, very sunny. So God allowed us to come here, fill the hall, and then when He realized that we needed to be here till the end, He caused the rain of blessing to fall. So let us thank our Almighty Father, God in heaven, for making sure that we didn't just start, but we're here at the end. Please let us a round of applause for our Lord and our God. It's been quite a very long, yet insightful, informative, yet thought-provoking. I'm sure we are all leaving here asking ourselves questions and also going away with a lot of nuggets of wisdom that have been shared. And so on behalf of the Governing Council of our dear institute, that is under the unique leadership of Madam President, Mrs. Fumi Ekundayo, FCIS, and all participants, please give a rousing applause to yourself. I want to join the Chairman and Madam President who already expressed gratitude. This is a unique audience because for you to have stayed here from 11, in fact, from 10, some actually came even before 10 a.m. and you are still here. You deserve that applause. So thank you very much. We express our deepest gratitude to you. I know that you have learned a lot and you've taken away a lot, just like I have. I want to also thank Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor of our dear state. Last night, we were still chatting, and she did indicate that she is representing His Excellency at various events today. And so because of that, because she had looked with excitement, she had looked forward to this event. And we know that at subsequent events, whether in Akwa Ibom or out of Akwa Ibom, she will definitely be present. So our appreciation to her and for her support for this event. I don't know, whenever I want to thank the chairman, it's very difficult. Some people usually say, my job is easy when you want to do a vote of thanks. But this chairman has exceeded our expectation. But our president referred to the warm welcome that we received yesterday and the tour through the expansive campus of Top Faith University. Congratulations, sir, and thank you for the warm welcome. And you came very early today. In fact, we were here and then we said, the chairman is here, so the event is going to start. So thank you, because punctuality is key to governance professionals. Thank you for the wisdom you have shared and imparted. And thank you for throwing a challenge in so many ways, including opening up Top Faith University to a private partnership. Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate you and the team from Top Faith. Thank you very much, the Top Faith delegation to this event. To our keynote speaker, Dr. Tayo Adoguju, we will be there to vote for you when you finally decide to pursue that aspiration. Be sure that what you have shared today has landed on very fruitful soil. I'm sure that in subsequent events, we will take a lot of what you have put. You have thrown a lot of challenges, and we will take it because you at NESG plays a crucial role as a bridge between all the sectors. So thank you for making time in your very busy schedule to come here and speak to us. And to our discussants, the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, my brother, Dr. Linus Luka, FCA. I know how much he has been troubled. And I know that he would not even think of missing today. Thank you for your support. Once you gave your commitment, you stuck to it. So I cannot thank you enough for being here, for speaking from the point of government, and for the learnings. And you've assured us that you're going to take away a lot of what has been discussed here to make sure that those partnerships are better. Some you've also shared, some that didn't work too well, and some that are in the pipeline. So thank you very much, sir. And thank you for your, in fact, like they say, I'm at a loss of words today. Thank you for your support for ICSAN. And we look forward to your membership and your active participation in activities. Thank you very much. And also, we know that although Dr. Andy couldn't make it, he sent a very able representative, Mr. Sukwoito. Thank you for sharing from the implementing partner perspective and from your experience out there in the field. Sometimes it is limited to the public-private conversation, but we don't typically hear the view of the implementing partner. So thank you for sharing. And please convey appreciation to Dr. Andy. Thank you. I know that Mr. George Uresi, the COO of IBOM Air, would have loved to be here. So we extend our appreciation to him, and we look forward to having him at future events. I just want to share a few things before I continue with my notes of thanks. What some of the things I am taking away, and I know you have made your notes as well. Do good and do well. Both are possible. Do good and do well. And we noted all the good examples, those that didn't work, and some that are still in the work in progress. The need for a framework and structure, and that every challenge in Nigeria is a potential PPP. So I think that we have learned a lot today, and also for those who ask questions, express their opinions and comments. But before I proceed, let me acknowledge our honorary treasurer. I wanted to greet those outside before I come home. Our honorary treasurer, Mr. Francis Olawale, who is very passionate about anything that happens in the beautiful and serene state of Akwa Ibom. So thank you for being here and for participating once again. Online was our immediate past president, Omoba Benga Taiwo Owokalade, FCIS, who also was here. And I was paused because while I was looking at her, I got too excited and I forgot. This person is actually my closest sister, Ms. Ayatollah Jagu, who we have been in the trenches on so many occasions together, particularly under the umbrella of the UN Global Compact. So I know that Ayo should be in Abuja right now, but she spent her time to make the detour to you. So Ayo, you are not forgotten. I can never be forgotten. And President who joined us online, Omoba Benga Taiwo Owokalade, FCIS. Our past president, Mr. Bode Ayeku, joined I guess as early as we turned on the screen, he was already there. So thank you, Kipi and Yeku. There were other members of the council who joined at one time or the other. The one I call veteran elder, Dele Tokum, the FCIS. Mrs. Biola Lasse in the FCIS. Mrs. Nkechi Oyenso. She has worn so many caps today. I don't know which one to thank. But I thank all the caps that she wore today. Thank you very much for everything, as she's the chairman of the Publicity and Advocacy Committee. So special thanks for you and your community for putting this together. And by extension, I thank all the members of your committee, those who are present here and those who joined virtually. Also, Mr. Andy Amos, FCIS, who's a council member who has been running all over the place. I'm not sure he sat down for 2 minutes during the event. So Mr. Andy Amos, who's also the pioneer chairman of Akwa Ibom State Chapter, thank you very much. And Ms. Ronke Okwajobi, FCIS, Mrs. Benedicta Shagari, FCIS, Alaji Habibu Tijani, FCIS. Particular interest is that Kaduna State Chapter is the latest chapter to come on board. So we thank the chairman, who also is a council member, for joining from the beginning, and he's still online right now. Also, I noticed that a lot of our members across the footprint of ICSAN have joined. So I extend and applaud you for making sure that you see and you are heard. And please continue to send in your comments, observations, and questions even after today. I want to thank the registrar. He's been hovering all over the place. Mr. Oladipo Kuneye, ACIS, our registrar CEO, and the entire team at the ICSAN Secretariat. Please join me to applaud them. They are the ones who do all the heavy lifting in the background. And I do not want to forget the role they play. I also want to thank and acknowledge the chapter chairs who joined. Our host chairman, Mrs. Chinoyorem Emenabong ACIS, who's our host chair. I also saw Mrs. Efosa Iwere, FCIS, the chairman of Lagos State Chapter. And also Alaji Fauza Alokun, ACIS of Oyo State Chapter. Also, I mean, today was so well packed. I believe it's the air of Akwa Ibom. Mr. Iba Sibon, the immediate past chair of Akwa Ibom State Chapter, he's still in the hall. And Mr. Joshua Doye, I saw him online from Oyo State Chapter. And Mr. Celine Okoroma Vincent, who is right here, who came all the way from Rivers State, immediate past chair in Rivers State. And all other chapter chairmen who I may not have seen, we thank you. I also want to appreciate other professional bodies who have joined us today, whether physically or online. Permit me to specially recognize Leonard Sip, Professor Paul Johnny SAA, who joined from the beginning and is still on right now. Thank you very much, Leonard Sil. Participants from the academia, we had a large delegation from Topgate University. Thank you very much. Obong University, University of New York, Akwa Ibom State University. That says a lot for the academia to be present at this forum. I wouldn't forget the local organizing committee. They have done exceptional work. Please help me to applaud. Don't be tired. Under the leadership of Mrs. Inen Awaji, APIF, I think she was here a moment ago. I know she's busy in the background. And there's some people who have worked tirelessly to make this happen. It would not be complete without thanking them, even though they are absent today. And so please, help me to applaud our worship, Mrs. Teresa Anton, ACIF. She suspended her personal affairs to make sure that everything was ready for this event. In fact, she was with us yesterday when we went on the visit to Top Faith University. And so we want to really thank her. And I want to use the opportunity to congratulate my Lord, Honorable Justice Ntonto. Honorable Justice Ntonto is one of those people who is a champion. If he was in Akwa Ibom State today, he would have been here. And so we want to congratulate him because as this event was going on, he was formally sworn in as a justice of the Court of Appeal. And so we know that time is going on higher. I also want to acknowledge the Honorable Attorney General who sent a delegation from the Ministry of Justice here. And he had wanted to attend, but unfortunately he's out of the country, Mr. Uko Udom SAN, and the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Mrs. Idon Setiebe, who also sent participants to this event. And there's a long list, and please, you are not forgotten. You are remembered when it comes to exam. I may not mention your name, but be sure that you are precious and we see you. And so I want to invite you to join us at other activities of our institute. Over the last couple of weeks, you'll see, for those who are members, we've had several activities, and ICSAN never sleeps. And so because ICSAN never sleeps, join us on Thursday, July 11 at 11 a.m. for the presidential panel, where the president will talk about various topical issues in our nation. Also, the big masquerade, if I may call it that way. Join us on the 12th and 13th of August for our annual national conference, which will happen side by side with the award night. And so that will happen on the 12th and 13th of August, 2024 in September. Thank you very much. 12th and 13th of September in Lagos. So please join us in Lagos. And if you can't fly to Lagos on Ibom Air, please make sure you join us via Zoom and participate in our annual lecture and award dinner. Also, please engage the chapters closest to you for the chapter activities. ICSAN Akwa Ibom State has announced one, which will hold on the 25th of September. And we encourage you to be a member of this great institute, to borrow from the chairman, a member of this unique institute. And so you can get information on how to join via our website, via our social media handles, via the National Secretariat, or through the state chapter. On that note, I really want to thank you once again for your patience and for participating actively. God bless the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. God bless Akwa Ibom State. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
And when the Falcon speaks, you know you have heard. Please put your hands together once again for the lovely lady, FCIS. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. All I can say is thanks for staying through, for listening, for contributing, and for everything. Please, once again, before we finally close, may I remind you of the fact that there shall be a training organized by ICSAN Akwa Ibom State Chapter on the 25th of September 2024. The theme, with the theme, duties and responsibilities of modern administrative officers. Duties and responsibilities of modern administrative officers. Registration fee is 20,000 naira only, and it will happen here in Uyo. The venue will be Fresh Spring Hotels, and the keynote speaker will be the chairman of the Civil Service Commission, Mrs. Ekerebo Umo, and the resource person will be Mr. Enyekemen Finba. Corporate bodies and ministries are encouraged to sponsor their staff for the training, and you as a staff or you as an individual can be a part of it by paying the fees. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a close. It was good to be here with you. Thank you for staying. My name is Enobong Alphonsus Bierabasi, and please may we rise for the national anthem. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. Please, a round of applause for yourselves. Thank you.